Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Carter, and I'm the Executive Director of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. I'd like to welcome our amazing council members, our fantastic speakers for today, and of course, all of our wonderful guests who have joined us virtually to conduct this year's meeting. If you joined us last year, you know that today's format is just a little bit different from that of past President's Council meetings. Though we missed the opportunity to gather in person, I am very grateful for the flexibility of our team at the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, who so capably pivoted us to host this meeting virtually. While this year has brought many challenges and has been a very difficult time for youth sports, it really has only amplified the importance of the Council's mission to promote healthy and active lifestyles for all Americans. An important way the Council has worked towards achieving this mission is through the implementation of the HHS National Youth Sports Strategy, which we officially released last year as part of our President's Council annual meeting. The National Youth Sports Strategy aims to unite all Americans and the America's youth sports culture around a shared vision that one day all youth will have the opportunity, motivation, and access to play sports, regardless of their race, ethnicity, sex, ability, or zip code. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the importance of this vision is even more pronounced. This is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be here with all of you today to mark the one-year anniversary of the National Youth Sports Strategy launch and to reflect on not just the things we have been able to achieve this past year, but also on the work that needs to be done in the coming year as youth sports rebuilds. Much of the work achieved to date is thanks to the dedication and efforts of our amazing council members and our partner organizations, many of whom join us today. Partnerships are absolutely critical to realizing the vision of the National Youth Sports Strategy and other council-related programs. We're going to hear a little bit more later today about a new partnership initiative that we just launched. I look forward to sharing more about what the Council has been up to this year and to discuss how we can all work together to further our mission to promote youth sports participation and to encourage all Americans to live healthy and active lives. But before we get to that, I am delighted to welcome one of our President's Council co-chairs, Herschel Walker, to share a couple thoughts with our group as we get started. Herschel?
Hey, thanks, Christina. And on behalf of the council member and myself, we'd like to welcome everyone to the annual meeting of the President Council. And you can tell I'm excited to join virtually, even though you can't see me, because I'm learning a lot about this Zoom, Facebook Live, Skype, Microsoft, or whatever we're on today. But coming from a guy that still has AOL, you got to forgive me for that. And, I know these are tough times, but I encourage everyone to continue to take care of themselves, their family, and just remember we have little ones out there that are scared still, so continue to encourage them that things are going to get better. With my family, I call them every day to make sure that they're mentally and physically strong to continue to fight. And I like to thank all the council members for all their hard work for the past year. And also, Christine, I'd like to thank you and your staff for keeping us all up to date. And I'm looking forward to discussing continuing to encourage America to live healthy through the National Youth Sports Strategy later today. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Christina.
Great. Thank you so much, Herschel. We are very lucky to have you as a co-chair. You are just amazing. And we're excited to hear a bit more from you later in the program. Well, everyone, we have a very full agenda planned for you guys in the next few hours, so we're going to go ahead and get started. At this time, I'll turn it over to Jennifer Bishop, the designated federal officer for the President's Council, to officially call our meeting to order and take council member roll call. Jen, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the welcome to the September 2020 annual meeting of the President's Council for Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. The meeting is officially called to order, and we'd like to begin by doing roll call. Council members, when your name is called, please turn on your camera and unmute your phone so you can respond present. And then quickly after, we do ask that you mute your camera and your phone so the next council member can be called. First up is Brenda Becker.
Present.
Thank you. Bill Belichick. Johnny Damon. Trevor Drinkwater.
Present.
Thank you. Robert Goldman.
Present.
Thank you. Natalie Golbis.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Nan Hayward.
Present.
Thank you. Matthew Hesse. Ashley Lundvall.
Present.
Thank you. Missy May Trainer. Jake Olson.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Mehmet Oz. Okay. Mariano Rivera. Shauna Robach.
Present.
Thank you. Kyle Snyder.
Present.
Thank you. Julie Tier.
Present.
Thank you. Chris Teesey.
Present.
Thank you. Herschel Walker.
Present.
Thank you. Master Sergeant Robert Wilkins.
Present.
Thank you. Jim Worthington.
Present.
Linda Yacarino.
Present.
Thank you. And one more time, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
You were in the picture, by the way.
Because I did it, I saw that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We have a quorum present, and we are free to conduct the business of the council. I'm going to hand things back over to Christina.
Thank you guys very much. I'm joining Herschel in the virtual workshop. All right. Thank you to Jen, and thank you so much, council members, for joining us today. At this time, I'm pleased to announce our very first speaker, Captain Paul Reed, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health and Acting Director of the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, to say a few words. Captain Reed?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, and we would love to see you as well.
My video is on. Hang on one sec. How's that?
Perfect.
All right. Well, good afternoon to all the council members and all those viewing today's meeting. Very much appreciate this opportunity with you. I'm Captain Paul Reed, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health and the Acting Director of the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. On behalf of my entire office, I want to welcome you to the 2020 annual meeting of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. It is truly a pleasure to be here with you today. As many of you know, last June, the President's Council merged with the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion here at HHS, and it has been an amazing partnership to date. Over the past year, we've had the opportunity to jointly pursue our mission to promote opportunities for all Americans to lead healthy, active lives, and to work together to educate Americans about the benefits of physical activity and healthy living. The President's Council has helped to fulfill this mission through the work to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy and to promote physical fitness in the midst of COVID-19. We'll hear more about these activities this afternoon. I'd also like to recognize the permanent appointment of Christina Harder, who you just heard from, as the Executive Director of the President's Council. Christina previously served as the Acting Executive Director of this Council, and we were all very happy to see the appointment become a permanent one this past March. The Council continues to be in exceptionally good hands under her leadership, especially as we face the unprecedented challenges of this year during the global pandemic. Across the country, COVID-19 has necessitated the closures of parks, gyms, fitness centers, schools, and other public places, resulting in less opportunity for both physical activity and youth sports. It is clear that there are many benefits to physical activity under our normal circumstances, and the benefits to our physical and mental health through physical activity are even more imperative today. As we cope with this new coronavirus and the disruption of so many aspects of our lives, the mission of this council could not be more important. And I thank you all and the members for being here today and for all the work you do to encourage healthy and active lifestyles. Although they could not join us live today, both Admiral Brett Giroir, my boss, the Assistant Secretary for Health, and Alec Fazar, the Secretary for Health and Human Services, also wanted to express their appreciation of the work of this council, and I'm pleased to share their messages with you now. Thank you.
Hello. It is truly fantastic to have the President's Council members back together again. During the past few months, you have gone beyond even your normal weighty responsibilities to join forces in our response to COVID-19. You have continued to promote the benefits of physical activity and sports, and importantly, to show Americans how to be active at home, which we know is critical for their physical health, but perhaps like no time ever before, essential for their mental and emotional health. Because of the physical activity guidelines for Americans, we know that keeping everyone moving more and sitting less during the pandemic will bring both physical and mental benefits. We also know that if Americans met the physical activity guidelines, we would save $117 billion in annual U.S. healthcare costs and avoid 10% of all premature mortality in this country. The data on this slide shows that from 2010 to 2015, less than a quarter of U.S. adults met the physical activity guidelines, that being 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity and 2 days a week of muscle strengthening physical activity. It also shows how state physical activity levels compare with this average. The data from 2018 are a little improved, with around 24% of Americans meeting the guidelines, but we have seen some initial reports that physical activity rates are lower during the pandemic, with more people staying at home and not commuting to work or schools. And most gyms, like mine, are closed or open only on very limited hours. No matter the exact number, the overall trend is that most Americans are not getting the physical activity they need to stay healthy, and the pandemic is likely making that worse. This slide highlights some of the newly proven benefits of physical activity outlined in the second edition of the Physical Activity Guidelines. Additionally, I've bolded several of the benefits that are relevant during the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to highlight the first column, short-term benefits. These are benefits that could come about from just a single bout of exercise. I know this year has been stressful and probably has affected quality of life or sleep for many Americans. Specifically, the short and long-term benefits related to anxiety and depression are extremely important as Americans cope with the stress of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, more than ever, we must continue to promote physical activity for both its physical and mental health benefits. Among other benefits, physical activity can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers, all of which are conditions that place individuals at increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19. Indeed, the pandemic has again highlighted the serious consequences when infectious diseases and chronic diseases converge. So as tragic as this pandemic has been, it gives us still another opportunity to re-emphasize that it is imperative that we increase the physical activity levels in America. And what about children? Physical activity is just as beneficial to them, if not more so. For youth, regular physical activity can help improve bone health, weight status, fitness, heart health, and even cognitive ability. It can also reduce the risk of depression. These benefits are essential as youth navigate the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and social isolation. But with virtual classrooms and many canceled activities, youth are not participating in some of the routine physical activities they would normally engage in, like physical education or organized sports. Even before the pandemic, only about 20% of adolescents report sufficient activity to meet the aerobic and muscle strengthening guidelines, with boys getting more activity than girls. And the data on this slide from the Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System shows that this number is declining, not rising. In addition to the benefits youth gain from being physically active, research shows that there are additional benefits to youth sports participation. Sports can help youth develop important life and social skills, improve mental health and self-esteem, and actually increase school performance. And now we know even more about the benefits of youth sports thanks to the Science Board. Despite the many benefits that come from regular physical activity and youth sports participation, only about half of high school students participated in sports before the pandemic. And there are large disparities in participation with girls, racial and ethnic minorities, youth from low-income households, youth living in rural areas, and youth with disabilities. These participation rates and the disparities within the data highlight the primary reason HHS released the National Youth Sports Strategy last September, to ensure that one day all youth will have the opportunity, the motivation, and access to play sports, regardless of their race, ethnicity, sex, ability, or zip code. This has been a challenging time for youth sports, and council members have been speaking with groups of youth sports stakeholders across the U.S. as they work to introduce youth sports safely in the wake of the pandemic. We know that when youth sports do return, these disparities will likely be exacerbated. So how do we move more and sit less these days? With COVID-19, it can be even harder for Americans to get the physical activity they need. But there's good news. We know from the guidelines that even short bouts of physical activity can have benefits. Have you checked your mail yet today? Even just a quick walk to the mailbox and back can have immediate health benefits. How about walking up the stairs or just walking outdoors? It is easy to physically distance when you're walking outdoors. Or how about my favorite activity, planking? You may even be able to do a plank or a few push-ups as I wrap up this talk. It all adds up. We are all in this together. So let's keep physically active and physical activity at the very top of our list. And now it is my honor to welcome Secretary Azar to the screen.
Thank you, Admiral Giroir. And good afternoon to our council members and everyone else joining us virtually. I want to thank Co-Chair Herschel Walker for helping to lead today's meeting. And I want to thank the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion and the team behind the President's Council for putting this meeting together. I'm sure that hosting a Federal Advisory Committee meeting virtually is no easy task. But this is an especially important meeting. It's been 1 year since we released the National Youth Sports Strategy in response to President Trump's executive order to increase youth sports participation. In the past year, we've seen so many more new reasons why this work is important. We know girls, racial and ethnic minorities, youth from low-income neighborhoods, and youth with disabilities are less likely to have access to sports. That's why we developed the National Youth Sports Strategy, which aims to unite America's youth sports culture around a shared vision, that one day all youth will have the opportunity, motivation, and access to play sports, regardless of their race, ethnicity, sex, ability, or zip code. Today, we are particularly pleased to spotlight the National Youth Sports Strategy champions who are helping to achieve this vision. Later on, you'll hear from Christina Harder, the Council's Executive Director, and her colleague, Katrina Piercy, about our new partnership initiative to recognize organizations who work with underserved youth. I want to thank each one of our council members for all of your efforts since last year's annual meeting. Despite the challenges 2020 has brought, the council has continued to help implement the National Youth Sports Strategy, in part by convening a science board to review the available evidence related to youth sports and health. I'm pleased to hear that the science board will be presenting that report to the council as part of today's meeting, and I want to thank the board for their work. During the pandemic, the council has also supported several virtual workshops across the country to better understand the impact of COVID-19 on youth sports. In addition to your work to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy, the White House has specifically called on you to help encourage Americans to stay healthy and safe during the pandemic. All of you have stepped up as council members and beyond your duties as council members to help us reach Americans in a personal way during the pandemic, and those contributions will be recognized today. The dedicated work of the council goes to show that even during a pandemic that keeps us apart, we can find creative ways to come together and support each other. Especially at this time, America's youth need us to support opportunities for them to grow up happy and healthy. Thank you for all you've done as part of the President's Council to deliver on that vision, and I wish you a productive meeting today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to Admiral Giroir and to Secretary Azar. Our next speaker is Scott Turner, who is an incredibly passionate and service-oriented individual who has made his mark in the world of sports, business, and politics. He is a former NFL player, Texas State Representative, and Senior Advisor to the NFL. Currently, he is the Executive Director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council and also a Senior Advisor to us at the President's Council. Though he could not join us live, he has a very important message that I'm excited to share with you all right now. Over to Scott.
Hello, this is Scott Turner. I send greetings to you from Dallas, Texas, and I'm so honored to be a part of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition annual meeting. And want to thank all of you for your participation today as well. I currently serve as the Executive Director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, which the President set up as a result of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The spirit of the Council and the spirit of the Opportunity Zone legislation is both economic development as well as community development and social impact. When you look at this word revitalization, it means to bring new life or new energy. And our nation has about 8,764 opportunity zones that have been certified by the Treasury. And about 35 million Americans live inside of opportunity zones. We have had the privilege of going around the nation to over 60 or 65 cities across the country to collaborate with stakeholders on the ground, such as elected officials and faith leaders, education leaders, business leaders, community leaders, coming together to talk about the pain of the community and the distress of the community, but even more so to talk about a strategy to bring about long-term sustainability and generational impact. And when you talk about revitalization and transformation from a holistic standpoint, you have to talk about sports. We have had an unprecedented year in 2020. And youth sports have had a very difficult time. But I want to let you all know and encourage you today that the council and me personally and those that are involved with the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition stand ready to serve and have a steadfast vision and strategy and are laser focused to make sure that youth sports in America remain strong and thrive for many, many years to come. And I want to encourage all of you that are participating today, whether you partner with us already or whether you're thinking about partnering with us, I want to encourage you to get involved whatever way you can to reach back to the next generation of young men and young women as it pertains to youth sports. There's so many talented young people in America today that have tremendous skill sets, but oftentimes don't have a port of entry. And I know as a former athlete, myself, starting at the age of 8, playing organized football, pee-wee football, and then high school and college, and then on to the NFL, I understand the platform that sports gives us. And, you know, the benefits of playing youth sports, be it behavioral health, be it physical health, be it national security, be it nutrition, being in education. There's so many benefits, discipline and teamwork and understanding what it means to fall, but to get right back up and to compete and give your very best day in and day out, play after play. So many benefits that translate into everyday life. And so I'm excited to be here with you. And again, I want to thank you for your participation. Congratulations to the council on celebrating the 1 year of the National Youth Sports Strategy. There's a lot of work that has been done, but there's so much yet to do. And so thank you for joining us. I look forward to the days ahead. And together, I believe and I know that we can not only make our youth sports strong in America, but all the young men and young women that we serve and touch on a daily basis, we will impact them for a generation to come. God bless you, and thank you so much for your involvement.
Thank you so much, Scott. That's such an encouraging message. And, you know, it's always such a pleasure, personally speaking, and I know for the council as well, to hear from our remarkable HHS and White House leaders. So thank you to Captain Reed, Admiral Giroir, Secretary Azar, and Scott Turner for sharing those encouraging remarks with us today. We rely on their leadership, and we're very grateful for the tremendous support they continue to provide us as we further the council's mission. In compiling my update for you all today on what the council has been up to this past year, I could not begin without acknowledging, like the speakers before me, that this year has been one of tremendous challenge on so many fronts. The COVID-19 pandemic has touched us all in ways large and small and has disrupted many of the projects and events we had planned for 2020. However, despite these challenges, I personally have been amazed by the grit and resilience displayed by so many of the youth sports stakeholders that I've had the pleasure to talk to over the past year. Our President's Council members also have been leaders in this space, and I'm truly grateful to be working with such a dedicated and passionate group of people. Because of them, we have seen progress in many of the initiatives we started last year. To highlight, we have reinstated our science board, like Secretary Azar mentioned. We've promoted the National Youth Sports Strategy. We've emphasized the importance of continuing to be physically active throughout the pandemic, like Admiral Giroir said. We've supported a series of virtual National Youth Sports Strategy workshops that many of you who are joining us today participated in. And we have started, as of just a couple months ago, a partnership initiative to recognize the amazing organizations that work in alignment with the National Youth Sports Strategy. So if you all will allow me, I just want to take a couple minutes today to share a little bit more about each of these efforts. So first, in reinstating the Science Board as a subcommittee of the Council, we did this to examine the research related to youth sports. Last year, while we were developing the National Youth Sports Strategy, there were several youth sports stakeholders who identified a gap between the translation of scientific research on youth sports and youth sports programming. So in response to this gap, we announced at last year's annual meeting that the President's Council would officially reinstate its Science Board. And as of January of this year, we now have an amazing Science Board comprised of 14 individuals who have worked so hard to provide the scientific guidance underpinning the mission and the work of the Council. In just a very short time since the board was reinstated, they've developed a report summarizing the scientific research on youth sports and a fact sheet focusing specifically on the benefits of youth sports. We will get to hear more about the board's findings later on today from Science Board Chair Dr. Brad Cardinal and the Council Science Board Representative Dr. Nan Hayworth. We are tremendously grateful for the Science Board work thus far, as their report underscores the importance of our efforts to increase the awareness of the benefits of youth sports and also to promote youth sports participation. So thank you, Science Board members who are watching us today, for all the work that you've done. Now, over the past year, Council members joined HHS and White House leaders to participate in a number of events, both in person and virtually, to promote the National Youth Sports Strategy. I just want to highlight a few of those for you all today. In January of this past year, Scott Turner and Katrina Piercy, who you will hear more from just after me, participated in a youth sports roundtable in Charlotte, North Carolina, which brought together various community leaders to discuss ways to further collaborate and support youth sports participation in the Charlotte region. Together, Scott and Katrina shared how sports can foster community engagement and how the National Youth Sports Strategy can help realize that vision for that community. They also heard from several youth sports participants about how participating in sports and connecting with coaches has shaped their lives both on and off the field. Also in January, I had the opportunity to join our wonderful U.S. Surgeon General, Vice Admiral Jerome Adams, at the American Medical Society for Sports Medicine's Youth Sports Initiative. Together, we were able to speak to them about the ways their members could implement the National Youth Sports Strategy and to hear about their efforts to ensure that children and parents in their care have the best and safest sports experiences possible. We were very encouraged by the work that they were doing. This February, Councilmember Rob Wilkins and I attended an Embassy of Qatar Sports Day event with the Qatari ambassador and members of the Washington football team to celebrate health, wellness, and the benefits of engaging in sport. It was so encouraging to connect on our country's shared love of sports and the importance of allowing all children to reap the long-term health benefits of being active and having fun through sport. Councilmember Natalie Golbis participated in several public service announcements on behalf of the President's Council to help promote the National Youth Sports Strategy and to focus specifically on the importance of youth sports participation with our girls. During National Women's Health Week, Councilmember Dr. Nan Hayworth authored a blog on health.gov that also emphasizes the importance of sports and fitness for girls and women. Several council members also helped to promote the National Youth Sports Strategy through their participation in a series of virtual workshops hosted by ODPHP and the President's Council just this summer. These workshops were convened virtually in 6 regions across the country and connected well over 100 youth sports stakeholders to one another to discuss how to reintroduce programs in the wake of the pandemic. We're very grateful to co-chairs Misty May Trainer, Mariana Rivera, and Herschel Walker, along with council members Bill Belichick, Ashley Lundvall, and Kyle Snyder, who were able to participate and to encourage those who were on the line. In each of these workshops, we heard about the many challenges faced by the youth sports organizations, but we also saw them come together to discuss creative solutions to overcome these challenges. Their stories, resilience, and determination are admirable, to say the least. It reaffirmed that as we come out on the other side of this pandemic, we do have the potential to emerge even stronger. A long-standing role of the President's Council is to promote the benefits of physical activity, nutrition, and health among all Americans. With restrictions on in-person events and educational opportunities this year, council members quickly adapted to promote critical public health messages virtually during the COVID-19 pandemic. Through a variety of social media videos and posts, council members shared creative tips and encouragement to youth and families across America about the importance of staying active while social distancing. This message was especially highlighted during the month of May, which is National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. In a fun video explaining 5 ways to stay active, Councilmember Johnny Damon and his family showed how setting a family exercise goal can keep everyone excited and motivated. He demonstrated how he and his family of 8 do push-ups as a way to stay active together. Co-Chair Herschel Walker emphasized that you don't need fancy equipment to get a good workout in at home. Councilmember Brenda Becker shared that online workouts, walks, or just dancing counts as being active. Co-Chair Mariana Rivera emphasized the benefits of activity to combat stress and anxiety, which we know is very high right now in the midst of the pandemic. And Councilmember Natalie Golbis encouraged people to get outside every day, go jogging, or play solo or non-contact sports. Council members also engaged with their communities by spreading hope and positivity using Ivanka Trump's Together Apart campaign. Councilmember Bill Belichick brought his coaching skills to social media and giving an encouraging pep talk to players and families in his community. And perhaps most notably, Councilmember Jim Worthington, who joins us today, he and his team dressed up as superheroes and Disney princesses. Jim is Captain America, of course, to create a very memorable drive-through experience for families and kids in their community. In other social media posts, several council members assisted the White House and HHS in encouraging individuals who have recovered from COVID-19 to donate blood plasma. As many of you know, people who have recovered from COVID-19 are in a unique position to help save lives through donating their plasma, which contains antibodies that may help others fight COVID-19. Dr. Oz was especially helpful in promoting this important public health request through a series of informational videos about COVID-19 and how and where to donate plasma. This list of activities hardly scratches the surface on the work these council members have done this year. I want to thank each of the council members for all you do to support the important work of the council. I truly have never met a more passionate, successful, dedicated, and service-oriented group of people who genuinely care about making the lives of our nation's youth better. It's a privilege of a lifetime to serve each of you in this work, and I want to thank you for the time, talents, and treasures that you've offered both to me and to our country through your service. Before closing, I do want to mention an effort initiated to recognize the amazing organizations that work in alignment with the National Youth Sports Strategy. The vision of the National Youth Sports Strategy can only be realized with the collaboration and engagement of partners from across the youth sports landscape. Beginning this summer, the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion invited both public and private sector organizations to become NYSS champions and to receive recognition from the President's Council and ODPHP for the amazing work that they do to support youth sports. My esteemed colleague, Lieutenant Commander Katrina Piercy, is a physical activity and nutrition advisor from ODPHP, and she'll be speaking to us next. She was absolutely instrumental in the development of the National Youth Sports Strategy, and she'll discuss our implementation of the strategy to date and also announce our first group of NYSS champions. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. Thank you, council members, so much again for the work you've done. And now I'm going to turn it over to Katrina to share more about the National Youth Sports Strategy.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. I appreciate the overview of all of the work that the council has been doing this past year. And I'm really excited to be with you all today to talk about our work in implementing the National Youth Sports Strategy, as well as Christina mentioned, announcing the first group of NYSS champions who are joining us as we further implement. So to start with, I'd like to provide a little bit of background about the National Youth Sports Strategy itself, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Last September, we launched the strategy and organized it around a framework for understanding youth sports participation. In this, we developed the model you see on the slide here, which talks about the different factors at which youth sports can be impacted. So we start at the middle with the individual or interpersonal level, that's the youth themselves, going up to the interpersonal, which refers to the parents or coaches, also the organizational, the community, and the public policy. And as you see on the side, there's several factors within each of these levels. And beyond that, in the National Youth Sports Strategy, we developed over 50 opportunities and action items that can be used to help further promote youth sports. And at the core of all of this, at the bottom, you see is the importance of addressing equity and inclusion. Now, these opportunities and action items range from different topics of making sports fun, thinking about sports sampling, making sure sports are safe, fun, and inclusive, and developmentally appropriate. In conclusion, we all have a role to play to support youth sports. So let's talk about why we set this up. So you've heard a few times already about the vision of the National Youth Sports Strategy, and you'll hear it a few more times in my talk. And I'm repeating it a few times because I think this is really an important core piece about why we set up the National Youth Sports Strategy. You heard from Admiral Giroir about the disparities in participation. So we know the latest data that we talked about last year when we launched was approximating about 58% of youth that participate in youth sports. But we know there's disparities in who is participating. That is girls, youth with a disability, youth from households of lower socioeconomic status. Those populations tend to have lower participation. And we know from the impacts of COVID-19 that likely the disparities are going to widen in terms of who has the access and the opportunity to play sports when they're safely able to do that. And so we kept this vision in our forefront as we worked to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy over this past year, and especially thought about how do we make this vision come to life, and how do we partner with other organizations to really think about one day that all youth would have the opportunity, motivation, and access to play sports. regardless of their race, ethnicity, sex, ability, or zip code. So before I dive into what we did to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy, you've already heard about the importance of physical activity. And that was really the lens at which we started writing the National Youth Sports Strategy. So our office led the development of the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, the most recent edition that we launched back in 2018. And in that, we compiled all of the science to look at how much activity kids and adults need every day to get the benefits that they need. And we know kids need at least 60 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity each day. And this brings important health benefits from cardiovascular, from brain health, from cognition, from depression, which is an important piece now as we're in this global pandemic. And we know that youth sports can even bring more benefits. And you'll hear a little bit later about the tremendous number of benefits that come along with just being physically active, but what youth sports can bring from the Science Board's work. So we thought about this with the lens of physical activity, and then also thinking about how can we help more kids get the additional benefits through youth sports. Now, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic started early in 2020, and so that has definitely impacted our work to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy. And as I walk through the pieces, you'll see where we've made some adjustments, but still really focusing on how can we think about when youth sports do return, how do we ensure that sports are safe, fun, inclusive, developmentally appropriate, and accessible to all youth. So let's dive into the implementation. In Chapter 8 of the National Youth Sports Strategy that we released last year, hopefully you've all seen a copy of this. If not, you can also download it off our website at health.gov. But in that last chapter, we really wanted to take the strategy and put it into action and say, what are we doing next? When we put out the strategy, it was the first time the federal government had really looked at youth sports, the benefits of youth sports, and who are the players that can support a better youth sports culture in the United States. Therefore, we focus our implementation efforts on 4 key areas: the communication and promotion of youth sports, federal government coordination, measurement of youth sports, and partnership and stakeholder coordination. So within these 4 buckets, you'll see several items listed below here, and these are the different projects and programs that we worked on over this past year. Now, it takes a large team to pull this off, and so you'll hear from several of my colleagues across the department about more of this work that's ongoing. But I'd like to touch on a few of these pieces as to how they relate to our office's work and what we've been doing and where we're going from here. So let's start with the communication and promotion of youth sports. So as been mentioned before, we launched the National Youth Sports Strategy last September 19th at Fort DuPont Ice Arena. It was an event with many of the President's Council members and HHS leadership, and a way to bring the strategy to kids that were there on the rink playing hockey. From that launch, we had over 179 media stories, and we reached over 111 million individuals just with that launch event. We've been furthering those efforts through presentations from President's Council members as well as ODPHP staff. I don't need to talk about the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Obviously, you just heard about Christina's work, but we are so grateful to the members of the Council and the ways that they have been able to amplify and spread these messages to their networks. It's really helped to lift up the message and further this. The Move Your Way Communications campaign is something that our office developed to go along with the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, the 2nd edition that I mentioned that we released in 2018. And really, the National Youth Sports Strategy was a nice flow from that piece because we know the benefits that kids need about getting we know the benefits the kids can get from doing 60 minutes of regular physical activity each day. And if we can have them doing sports, we can gain even more. So if you see the slide here, you see a snapshot of some of the resources that we have for Move Your Way. It currently contains over 40 resources in both English and Spanish, includes things like posters, fact sheets, videos, interactive tools, and we're in the process of building this out. We're working on developing materials that target youth and parents themselves, really to focus on how do we encourage youth sports participation. One of the things that we've done is do some focus group testing to learn from parents about how do we best communicate the benefits of youth sports and encourage them to help sign their kids up. And we heard from those parents that they really liked the messages that emphasize the development of life skills, describe the diversity of sports options, and also focused on fun. So we're thinking about these pieces as to how to set up the messages and help encourage more kids to have these opportunities. Now with COVID-19, we had to put a pause on this work, and so we're hoping to release the posters, the fact sheets, and videos in this next year. If you're not familiar with the Move Your Way work, everything can be downloaded from our health.gov website, can be used, shared, printed, distributed, and then we also keep people up to date when we develop and release new resources, like the youth sports ones I mentioned, if you're signed up from our physical activity listserv, also on health.gov. The other piece that comes under the promotion is the Science Board. As I mentioned, you will hear from them later today, but I wanted to take a moment and acknowledge and thank this esteemed group. So when we had the President's Council annual meeting last year, Admiral Dua announced that we were reinstating the Science Board. The Science Board is a subcommittee off of the President's Council, which is considered a federal advisory committee. And so what we did is put out a call for nominations and asked academic experts with a specific focus and interest in youth sports to join us. We had a number of qualified individuals, and we're thrilled to welcome this esteemed group in this past January. Dr. Brad Cardinal has been chairing this group, along with Dr. Nan Hayworth, who has been the President's Council representative serving the group. And I have to say, we were just all very impressed with the volume of work that the Science Board was able to do to really kind of add this academic piece and help bolster the science as it relates to youth sports. Specifically, the Science Board focused on developing a report which was looking at accessibility, optimizing the youth sports experience or youth sports context, parents, coaches, and mentors, as well as retention. They also did a tremendous job in pulling together all of the benefits of youth sports and developed a short report, which really helps to translate kind of the why and to kind of take us a bit further from our work in the physical activity guidelines to talk about what youth sports can do separately. The next piece of this is the federal government coordination. So as I mentioned, this is a large group that has been working on the implementation side. The Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion took the lead on developing the National Youth Sports Strategy, but we worked in close collaboration with CDC, NIH, the Office of Minority Health, and the Office on Women's Health, as well as others across the department to develop the National Youth Sports Strategy. We then transitioned that writing team into the implementation team. We met monthly and then quarterly to develop the plans and to continue progress around implementation of the strategy, as well as to determine where we needed to pivot with COVID-19 this past year. And we'll continue to maintain this group as a way to make sure that our efforts are coming across the department and also looking for opportunities to grow our efforts. The second piece here, you'll hear more about actually in the talk following mine. One of the wonderful things we were able to do along with the launch event last September was the Office of Minority Health and the Office of Women's Health announced 18 grants as part of the Youth Engagement in Sports, or YES initiative. So they awarded over $6.7 million in grants to communities to help put the National Youth Sports Strategy into action. So they were specifically targeting underserved communities to help bolster sports participation, improve physical activity levels, and also talk to kids about the importance of healthy eating. You'll hear more about that piece next. The third piece is the measurement of youth sports. So we know from our work in looking at the data and youth sports participation as part of the National Youth Sports Strategy that it can be really challenging to measure youth sports. There's a number of surveys that are out there. There's a number of federal ones, and there's slightly different questions, and they're picking up different pieces. And so one of the things that we've been looking at is to how to pull together those data pieces and how do we use that to track youth sports participation. One thing we were able to do, along with our colleagues at CDC, was a recent publication in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. And this publication was highlighting disparities in youth sports participation from the last year in 2017 to 2018. Specifically, they were looking at youth ages 6 to 9 compared to youth ages 10 to 14 and finding differences, demographic differences between these two groups. So, for example, the youth that had lower household income, the younger kids, 6 to 9, had lower participation in youth sports compared to older kids. So we know across the board, pre-COVID-19 data, that we had about 6 in 10 youth that were playing youth sports. But what this data was able to do was drill down a little closer to the subgroup populations and see that with younger kids, there's actually even more disparities than we already know about in terms of racial and ethnic minorities, youth with a disability, girls, for example. So that's one example of trying to pull out some of these data pieces and determine kind of how we tell the picture of where we are in youth sports. The other piece that we're doing in terms of measurement and surveillance relates to Healthy People 2030. So this was just launched a couple weeks ago in August. Healthy People 2030 is run by another team at ODPHP, and we were thrilled to see an objective that was added to Healthy People that focused on tracking youth sports participation. Healthy People tracks objectives organized by several different categories with the goal of improving the overall health and well-being for all Americans. Objectives are organized by health condition, such as heart disease and stroke, by health behavior, such as nutrition and healthy eating, by population, such as older adults, and by settings and systems, such as schools. So the physical activity objectives fall under the health behavior area, and there's actually 13 objectives that we are tracking for physical activity. Healthy People is set up in decade-long increments. So we set goals at the beginning of the decade that we hope to achieve at the end of the next one. So Healthy People 2030 is where we hope we will all be as a country in the next 10 years. So for the physical activity objectives, a number of them are in line with our work for the physical activity guidelines and are tracking progress, for example, in the number of minutes that adults are doing for aerobic physical activity and muscle strengthening physical activity. This particular objective that you see on the slide here, physical activity 12, is increasing the proportion of children and adolescents who play sports. And so this is a baseline measure indicating this is the first time that we're adding in this piece here. Data is being pulled from the National Survey of Children's Health. And this data, the most recent that we have from 2016 to 2017, shows about 58% of youth who are participating in a sports lesson or sports activities on the weekends or after school. The goal over this next 10 years is to increase that number to 63%. Now, obviously, we know COVID-19 is going to play a factor here, but that's why we've got 10 years to work towards this goal. But overall, what this does by putting a youth sports tracking piece into Healthy People is kind of elevate the importance of thinking about how youth sports kind of factor into the overall health piece. And finally, the last piece of our implementation arm is the partnership and stakeholder coordination. The National Fitness Foundation is the foundation connected with the President's Council, and you'll hear from Clay Walker, the Executive Director, later today. Christina mentioned a little bit about our NYSS virtual workshops. So we had plans this year to do 4 in-person youth sports workshops with the idea to bring together organizations to talk about youth sports across sectors within the community. What we decided to do with COVID-19 and not having meetings in public was to shift these to virtual workshops. We conducted 6 in different regions across HHS with the idea to bring together youth sports serving organizations so they could discuss the reintroduction of youth sports. We realized that across the country, by state, by county, by region, everyone is at a slightly different place in terms of reopening and when some of these things may happen again. So by connecting similar peer groups, we could help organize and connect others so they could learn from one another as we're all navigating this new world that we're in at the moment. What you see here on the slide is an image of our virtual whiteboard that we were able to do. Of course, we'd rather have these meetings in person and be able to talk through things and put our sticky notes up on the wall. Since we weren't able to do that, having a virtual whiteboard allowed the groups to walk through and talk through the specific challenges their organization was working on, brainstorm opportunities together, and then think about who could be the person to help or the persons that would help support and overcome some of those challenges. We heard a number of different challenges and a number of unique areas across the country, but there were several that were common throughout, and that is decreased funding, programmatic changes, youth and family engagement, and compliance with COVID-19 policies. But I think the one thing that we took away from this is that we heard resoundingly communities and organizations were really committed to bringing back sport programs that are safe, fun, inclusive, developmentally appropriate, and accessible when it's safe to do so. So we're looking forward to putting together the findings from the workshops and hoping we may be able to plan in person for 2021. And finally, as we've talked about a few times, today is also the official launch of our NYSS Champions. So this program came about, if you recall my presentation from last year, we talked about our work that we would be doing to organize and kind of do the implementation side of the National Youth Sports Strategy. One of the things we started doing was meeting with organizations and learning more about how we could support the work that is already happening and how we could learn more about what's happening across the United States, because there is just so many tremendous programs. So what we did, we took this information and put out a Federal Register notice in this June and asked organizations that were doing work that aligned with the vision of the National Youth Sports Strategy to submit a statement of interest so we could learn more about their work. From there, we set up a phone call with every organization to learn more about the work that they do and also to hear how they're doing in the wake of COVID-19. And I just want to say a thank you. I was on every one of those calls, and it was really wonderful to hear about some of the really creative and unique ways that organizations are keeping kids active and thinking about non-traditional ways in our current times. So we pulled together this group, and I'm really excited today. We're announcing our inaugural group of 42 National Youth Sports Strategy champions. So this is a growing group, but we wanted to take a pause and acknowledge and thank this initial group that has signed on with us. You see a lot on this slide here. So at the far left is our badge, the NYSS Champions badge. And then you're also seeing a snapshot here of our data that is up on our website now. So one of the things that we asked organizations about was how many kids that they are serving and hours that were volunteered in support of youth sports. And we were looking to track this in the 1 year post the launch of the National Youth Sports Strategy. Now we're fully aware with COVID-19 that that's affected more than half of the year. So we're excited to see this number grow. But I think given what we've been going through this past year, the fact that these 42 organizations, and many of whom are not direct youth serving organizations themselves, they serve nearly 6.5 million youth and over 4.6 million volunteer hours. Really emphasizes and underscores the importance of having volunteers, whether that's parents, caregivers, coaches, officials, grandparents that are help supporting these programs in a variety of different capacities. And as you see in the bottom of the slide, this is our new webpage that is launched this morning. And there you can go on and find more information about each of the NYSS champions. There's a blurb about each of them, and an additional link to go to their website to learn more about them. You can also see here what we did is organize the NYSS champions by state. So I will note, I said there's 42 NYSS champions. There are 14 of those 42 that are operating in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and perhaps some of the territories as well. So this map is just capturing some of the state and the local areas. And so the colors don't incorporate those additional 14, but it does give you a snapshot. As you can see, we've got representation from just about the entire country in terms of the groups and the work that they are doing. The other thing, interestingly, that we asked organizations to share back with us, and this was our way to help connect what the organizations were doing to the National Youth Sports Strategy, is when we asked them to submit a statement of interest, we asked, what are the 3 opportunities or action items that your organization is doing? And many times they came back and said, well, we're doing a lot more than 3, but here's the top ones. And this gave us a nice snapshot of kind of where their focus area was, whether that being coaches, whether it be focusing on fun, encouraging sports sampling, incorporating elements of positive youth development. We've got a diverse group that is all doing tremendous work in youth sports. And so these next 2 slides, unfortunately, we couldn't fit all 42 names on one slide, so you'll see these across these next 2 slides. These are the 42 NYSS champions that are now part of our partnership platform. We're excited to work with them all. As you can see from the list, there are some smaller groups that might operate in just one individual community, as well as the larger organizations that are operating across the United States. The other thing you'll see is that there's a big variation in the type of organization, from academic institutions to foundations to specifically youth sports serving organizations themselves. And we got the question a few times as we were getting started, does my organization fit? Can we be a part of this? Yes. If your organization is doing work that supports the National Youth Sports Strategy, we want to partner with you all. And so this can happen in non-traditional ways. The local bank who is buying the jerseys for the softball team is supporting the National Youth Sports Strategy because they're removing a cost barrier and helping the team as well as the parents and caregivers to be able to play. For the kids to be able to play, removing the cost barrier that often falls on the parents and the caregivers. Or it could be an organization that is encouraging its workers to support youth sports by serving as a volunteer, as a coach, or an official. We know that coaches that reflect the demographics of the communities that they work in really can be positive role models. So that's one way that an organization could be a national youth sports strategy and may not be directly doing a youth sports serving organization. So you will see the names of all of these organizations up on our group or up on our website, and I invite you to learn more. Check out the great work that they are doing, and just want to say thank you to all of them. Also, we're growing our network, so we'd love to welcome others to be a part of this. You'll see our badge again here. We share this with organizations, and so if you see this badge on an organization's website, you know that they are doing work in alignment with the National Youth Sports Strategy. You can also click directly from the badge and get to our website to learn more about them. The other piece that we're doing on the website is that we're highlighting if an organization works specifically with an underserved population. We've talked about these groups a few times, but we really wanted to put a spotlight because we know participation rates are lower, and so we wanted to highlight that piece. You can also search on the website by underserved population to really look at what are organizations, for example, that focus on youth with a disability. The bottom link on this slide is our blog, which was part of the initial announcement about the NYSS Champions. So this gives you more information about how to apply. If you're interested in being a part of this, we are excited to work with any and all organizations and to help further the work and the implementation of the National Youth Sports Strategy. And finally, I'd like to wrap up and say a big thank you to the NYSS implementation team. As I mentioned at the beginning, it takes a large group, and you see over 20 of us here on the slide. These were individuals who have all been a part of this in some capacity over this past year that have touched the National Youth Sports Strategy. And it takes a giant team. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been a part of this and everybody who will continue to work to further youth sports engagement. And finally, also a thank you to the council members. I know we've been asking you to help disseminate and share information about the youth sports strategy, and you're going to help us build our network with the NYSS Champions. So a big thank you to them and a thank you to all of the NYSS Champions. We're excited to be working with you all. I'll hand things back to Christina to introduce our next speakers.
Thank you so much, Katrina. I am just amazed and so excited by the work and really at a time in the pandemic that is so difficult for so many organizations, finding unique ways using our platform and website to really highlight the amazing work that folks are doing in the youth sports space. So please, if you've not already, please join that network. We want to partner with you. We want to have conversations specifically with you of how we can help and how we can promote the work that you guys are already doing. Like Katrina mentioned and alluded to in her conversation, we are going to now hear from two individuals who have been also instrumental in the implementation of the National Youth Sports Strategy. So last year, HHS, the Office of Minority Health and Women's Health, collaboratively awarded more than $6.7 million to 18 community organizations as part of the Youth Engagement in Sports, or YES, initiative. So we're now going to hear from Rear Admiral Felicia Collins, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Minority Health and Director of the Office of Minority Health, as well as her colleague, Dr. Dorothy Fink, who is our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Women's Health and Director of the Office on Women's Health, who are going to share updates on their grantees.
Hello, I am Rear Admiral Felicia Collins, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Minority Health and the Director of the Office on Minority Health.
And I am Dr. Dorothy Fink, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Women's Health and the Director of the Office on Women's Health.
It is our pleasure to join you today and to share the important partnership that the Office of Minority Health and the Office on Women's Health embarked upon last year in support of the new National Youth Sports Strategy, which also supports the mission of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services developed the National Youth Sports Strategy in response to an executive order that called for a national strategy to increase youth sports participation. We know that playing sports is one way youth can get the physical activity they need. And according to the physical activity guidelines for Americans, youth need at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity daily to stay healthy. As pediatricians, Dr. Fink and I were so pleased that our offices could actively support the launch of the administration's and the Department of Health and Human Services' first federal roadmap that outlines the steps the nation can take to ensure all youth have the opportunity, motivation, and access to play sports, regardless of their race, ethnicity, sex, ability, or zip code. Like you, we are concerned that parents from households making less than $50,000 a year are twice as likely as higher earners to say that costs make it more difficult for their children to participate in sports. Equally troubling is that just 49% of girls participated in a sports team or lesson compared to 60% of their male counterparts. Thus, the Office of Minority Health and the Office on Women's Health partnership was created to identify best practices for improving physical activity and nutrition through increased sports participation for racial and ethnic minorities, girls, those with disabilities, and socioeconomically disadvantaged youth in grades 6 through 8.
Working together as part of the National Youth Sports Strategy, our offices launched a $6.7 million grant in 2019 to promote and increase youth participation in organized sports across the United States. The Youth Engagement in Sports Collaboration to Improve Adolescent Physical Activity and Nutrition, the YES Initiative, supports local partnerships that offer youth sports and nutrition activities. This is especially critical for girls. Research has shown that girls who engage in sports have lower risks of chronic disease, obesity, and depression. They are more likely to have higher levels of self-esteem, healthier menstruation, and stronger bones, which has a direct impact on osteoporosis risks later in life. Funded for 2 years, each site partners with institutions of higher education, community recreation groups, sports organizations, and public health organizations, local schools, and others, including tribal entities, to develop sports programs for local children and youth. As each partnership works to address unique needs within their specific community, the common thread between all of these grants is that they are working to provide community youth with opportunities to experience different types of sports activities. For the YES Initiative, sports include all forms of physical activity, including non-traditional activities such as adventure-based programs for hiking, climbing, and mountain biking that improve physical fitness, physical literacy, and mental well-being. The initiative also includes opportunities to form social relationships and an element of healthy competition. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed how youth not only access the school system, but also how they participate in sports activities. This change has been felt among the YES grantees, but in spite of these challenges, the grantees have been resilient. We are proud of the way most have adjusted their strategies and learned some valuable lessons along the way. Lessons such as online solutions, including social media and video platforms that can fill the access gap and increase engagement. Additionally, collaborations with schools to train teachers on online resources that can create a win and establish strong partnerships. As a result, some schools have integrated YES programming into their online learning systems. Several grantees are now working directly with coaches to develop virtual training and resources. Last, but certainly not least, creativity can go a long way. A number of YES grantees design challenges to encourage youth to create new recipes and to engage in physical activities. For example, locally generated physical activity videos were created in shorter 20 to 30 minute clips, which makes it easier to meet the physical activity guidelines of 60 minutes per day.
To date, we are excited to announce that the YES grantees have developed more than 1,186 partnerships across the country and made over 47 different sports available to youth. The grantees have trained 402 school staff and offered 216 classes on nutrition and over 1,250 classes on sports programming to students. Almost 30% of the sports programming classes were conducted during the COVID-19 outbreak. A few months ago, COVID-19 threw a strong curveball at YES grantees and their partners. They had to rapidly adapt to the new reality of providing services and support remotely. We applaud the YES grantees who have responded with resilience and creativity to continue supporting sports and physical activity for young people. We are confident that all of us, parents, coaches, sports leagues, gyms, and others, can tap into our own ingenuity to develop ways to keep our youth active, healthy, and involved in traditional and non-traditional sports this fall and winter. And the Office of Women's Health and the Office of Minority Health look forward to continuing to work together to support our youth in sports and to support the goals of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition.
We want to end by thanking everyone for supporting our girls, our boys, and our youth.
And I'm back. Thank you guys so much, Dr. Collins and Dr. Fink, for those remarks. It's so wonderful to hear how the YES grantees have responded with such resilience and creativity in light of the pandemic. We're now excited to hear from Clay Walker, who is the Executive Director of the National Fitness Foundation, which is the official charity of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. He's going to provide an update on activities that have taken place since our last annual meeting. Clay is already on, so thank you so much for joining today, and over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, and welcome to everyone. I'm going to be pretty brief today. I'm going to give you a quick update on just a little background on the foundation. Again, a little update on what we're doing with the Presidential Youth Fitness Program and more of our activation around the National Youth Sports Strategy. So let's start with background. The National Fitness Foundation, get the slide. The National Fitness Foundation is the only congressionally chartered foundation focused on youth sport, health, and fitness. It was created to facilitate private sector partnerships and investments that support youth sport, fitness, and nutritional programs. It supports public health policy initiatives outlined by the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, and it is committed to effective philanthropy supporting evidence-based programs that improve health outcomes. If you think about it, it's similar to the CDC Foundation or the HHS. It works with the NIH and their foundations. It's very, very similar. But if you think about it in the private sector, it would be similar to something like the NBC Foundation, Boston Scientific Foundation, or the Patriots Foundation. Next slide. Sorry about that. So there's really two different initiatives that we're focused on. The two different initiatives that we're focused on. One is the Presidential Youth Fitness Program, and what we call that in-school physical activity. Why that? Because fewer than 40% of kids are participating in youth sports in America. So we're still focused on in-school activity, and PYFP is a 60-year-old program. That's how we do it. The second activity is really the National Youth Sports Strategy. That's new. That's what is different. That is what no President's Council has ever attacked, has ever taken this approach. It's novel, and we're excited about it because it allows us to get outside of, say, schools and outside of the classroom. Both of these initiatives, I should point out, are intended to address health, and equity. And I think that's important for everyone to understand. So let's talk about where PYFP is today. The program is more than 60 years old. It was started in the 1960s. It was reimagined by CDC and the National Fitness Foundation and the President's Council in 2013. In 2013, we began administering this program. Currently, we work with AAU as our implementation partner. If you don't know about AAU, you should. They have more than 700,000 kids registered to participate in their youth sport programs and more than 150,000 volunteers. Last year, we also switched our software partners, and we're working with a company called Interactive Heart Technologies. They are fantastic. They have been great in terms of their flexibility and making sure that physical educators have what they need in schools. If people ask us often, does PYFP work? The Centers for Disease Control conducted a survey for us in 2017, 18, and 19. 92% of administrators reported that PYFP impacted their schools in a positive way. Another 85% of students reported that PYFP motivated them to be physically active. Currently, we're in about 44% of all schools in the country are implementing the program. There were more than 11,000 schools that implemented the program last year, and more than a third of students, and this is important to note, more than a third of the students that participated in PYFP qualified for reduced school meal programs. So it is certainly getting to areas of need. So where's that headed? Where are we headed next? PYFP at home was launched when schools shut down in the spring. PYFP is now primarily being administered online during 2021, mostly as a result of COVID. As a result, we are in the process of creating PYFP Digital, a series of videos, tutorials, and instructions that guide the physical educators. Also, we're excited that PYFP was added to the AAU Junior Olympics. It's an opportunity to expand the visibility of PYFP, and the long-term idea, is to make it similar to the National Spelling Bee. One other program we're excited about is working with Mark Cuban. You may know him as the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and also a Shark Tank judge. He's agreed to support PYFP with $100,000 of personal funding, so we're excited, and he will be joining us to promote the program later this fall. So where do we focus most of our time? That's around the National Youth Sports Strategy. That is something that is critically important to making this initiative dynamic, something that is not just in the classrooms, but something that we are bringing out into communities. So I'm going to go through just an update on where youth sports is today and its impact, the impact that COVID has had on it. Let's start with where it is today. Approximately 45 million American children are participating in youth sports annually. Fewer than 40% of American children under age 18 are participating in youth sports. This compares to 73% of American children that are playing video games. Obviously, those numbers are not what we would like. Youth sports is a $19 billion industry. It is also largely privatized. It is not something that is largely run by the federal government or state governments or local governments. It's largely privatized. And in terms of where the percentage of activity is, for boys age 6 to 12 that played on a regular basis, that figure dropped from 49% in 2012 to 38% in 2018. For girls, the numbers dropped from 33% to 31% in 2018. And the last point on this, just where youth sports is today, underserved communities, which has been mentioned repeatedly, really are the ones lacking access. 33% of kids from homes with incomes under $25,000 were less physically active, compared to only 9% of children from homes of incomes of greater than $100,000. So let's talk about COVID's impact on sport. You can't do anything without addressing that issue. The 2020 Olympics were postponed. The 2020 British Open and Wimbledon tournaments were canceled. NCAA March Madness basketball tournament was canceled. New York City Marathon and hundreds of other road races were canceled. Dozens of colleges and universities are cutting back on sports, including universities such as Brown and Stanford. The USOPC, which is the United States Olympic governing body, they were forced to reduce their staffing by 1/3, permanent layoffs of 1/3. The NCAA just announced in the last 2 weeks that it was furloughing its entire 600-person staff. There is a lot of information coming to us from the Play Sports Coalition that is demonstrating that as many as 40% of youth sport operators are going to have to shut down as a result of COVID. So what have we done? What have we done to support and respond to COVID? First of all, we joined the Play Sports Coalition. We began advocating the need for government relief for youth sports. We joined efforts to support the FIT bill, which provides tax deductions for qualified health and fitness expenses. And I'll stop just for a moment on this one. This is an issue that people like Herschel Walker and Jim Worthington have been advocating for more than a decade. This bill would incentivize healthy lifestyles. It passed in the House, and it now needs to get voted on by the Senate. But this is something that we have been supportive of because it ultimately is going to support the National Youth Sports Strategy. We also began working on a framework to recruit volunteers to support youth sport programs across America. It's in its early stages, but volunteerism is really one of the bedrock foundations of youth sport, and we need more, especially in areas that are underserved. And I'm really excited to begin working with Scott Turner and the White House Opportunity Zones around an infrastructure partnership. We have been in conversations with Sports Facility Advisory, a group that's been around for almost 2 decades from Florida. They are doing a terrific job already, and their mission of improving the health and economic vitality of communities through sport and through sport infrastructure aligns with the youth sports strategy. So we're excited to join with them. In terms of other legislation, Max Rose has introduced a bill called the Youth Sport Healthy Working Families Relief Act. We're supporting that bill. We're also supporting the Restart Act, which is up for consideration right now. Now, let me jump to really quickly some of the programs that we are supporting. Program support you'll see here. These are all initiatives that support the National Youth Sports Strategy. National Signing Day, Game Makers, all of those programs are things that we are pursuing as an effort to support the National Youth Sports Strategy. I'll stop here just for a minute to talk about UNC Chapel Hill. The UNC Chapel Hill program, they will become the first university to publicly support the National Youth Sports Strategy. They are going to commit to, or they have committed to, a National Signing Day where every one of their coaches is signing the American Youth Sports Pledge, and they will be working with us and with Park and Rec this spring and this fall and next spring to make sure that Chapel Hill has the resources that it needs to fulfill the National Youth Sports Strategy. Speaking of the pledge, here is the pledge. Many of you have signed it. Members of Congress have signed it. Professional athletes have signed it. CEOs have signed it. You'll see some of those people right there on this next slide. If you haven't signed the pledge, I ask that you join us in supporting the American Youth Strategy by signing the American Youth Sports Pledge. Last slide I've got is the partnership framework. Really, the point to make here is that this success requires the combination of public and private sector resources. Nothing will happen if it's private sector only. Nothing will happen if it's public sector only. We have to bring together all of these resources under one umbrella. Last slide is just a thank you. I will say to all of the council members that I've worked with, many of you know this, that in March of last year, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. March of this year, I was given a clean bill of health. After 65 days in and out of hospitals, from chemotherapy, from radiation, from 3 different surgeries. One of the things, other than my faith and my family, one of the things that kept me going was this initiative, because I believe so much in it, and it's been so powerful to work with this group that is so committed to doing something different, to add to the Presidential Youth Fitness Program, to add the National Youth Sports Strategy is absolutely been a joy, and I look forward to working with you in 2021.
Thank you so much, Clay. I know that I speak for our council members, and they'll be able to speak in a little bit as well. We so appreciate the work that you do, and I really love the model that we're able to have with having a President's Council and also having a foundation to support the work of the President's Council. And we know from personal experience that we can find no one more passionate than you about this initiative. And so we thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited for the next year to be able to do some really amazing things.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clay. To everybody else, we are at our break time. We want you to be able to stand up, stretch those legs. Maybe you're inspired to do a couple push-ups or sit-ups, talking about so much physical activity. But we are going to join back here at this time at 2:45, which is 15 minutes, 2:45 Eastern Time, 15 minutes from now. We're very excited to see you and get started on the second half of our program. So stay tuned and get some good stretches in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you were able to get some good stretches and exercises in the last 15 minutes. I'm excited to start the second half of our President's Council annual meeting. I'm first going to turn it over to Jennifer Bishop to do just one more quick roll call to make sure we've got all of our council members back with us. Over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Christina. Council members, as I do roll call, please, there's no need to re-engage your camera. Just unmute yourself and let us know if you're present. Brenda Stacker.
Present.
Bill Belichick. Donnie Damon. Trevor Drinkwater. Robert Goldman.
Present.
Natalie Goldis. Nan Hayward.
Present.
Matthew Hesse. Ashley Lundvall.
Present.
Misty May Trainer. Jake Olson.
Present.
Dr. Mehmet Oz. Mariano Rivera. Shauna Robach. Kyle Snyder.
Present.
Julie Tier.
Present.
Chris Tesey. Herschel Walker.
Present.
Robert Wilkins.
Present.
Jim Worthington.
Present.
Linda Yacarino.
Present.
Thank you. And just to go back over the list briefly, Trevor Drinkwater, are you present? Natalie Goldis. Dr. Oz. And Shauna Robach. Okay, that concludes the roll call. We have a quorum. Turning it back over to you, Christina.
Thank you, Jen. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our next speakers from the Atlanta Boys and Girls Club. It was actually our intention to host this year's annual meeting from their club in Atlanta, so you could have heard from both of these amazing individuals in person. However, we are very appreciative that they are both willing to join us virtually today instead, as I know you'll be very inspired by what they have to say. Keisha Lacey is the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta Executive Director and an advocate for health and wellness. She's been an athlete, a coach, an instructor, essentially her entire life, and she's been extremely creative in ways to engage youth in the wake of the pandemic. Joining her today is Naya, a member of her club, who will share her experiences with youth sports and staying active in a virtual environment. So Keisha, take it away. Over to both of you.
No, so I am happy I'm here. I thank you guys for this opportunity. Honored to be here. Excited to share with you guys my experience, my thoughts in reference to sports and fitness and nutrition and really what it means and how important it is to our young kids here in Atlanta and throughout our nation. As you guys heard in my bio, I am a former University of Florida athlete. And my current role is an executive director at the Boys and Girls Club here in Metro Atlanta. I say all that because everything that I know in reference to sports and fitness started at the Boys and Girls Club. I'm a club kid, and so I'm an advocate of how important sports and fitness and our exercise programs are for our young people. When we think about sports and fitness here at our clubs and throughout our organization, we look at those programs and activities as we are planting the seeds to build these relationships with our kids. I do believe that these relationships have invaluable benefits that our kids will continue to nurture and mold as they become adults. And things will happen with them in reference to if they pursue college athletics, professional athletes, if they want to work in the sports and fitness industries. There are so many career benefits as well as personal benefits that they receive from our programs and activities. Why I feel like this is so important today is because everyone knows that, you know, we are living in an age of computers, and what we see here on the ground is that we see more of our kids spending more time indoors and less active time outdoors. And I think that is true throughout this nation. But in the club, as an executive director and being so involved and engaged with youth, what we still see here is our most popular program area is our gym. And that means a lot. That says a lot. That says that our kids look to play. They look for structured activities. They want to be a part of physical activities. And it's such a privilege to be able to provide that service for them here. Our kids and our teenagers have an opportunity to get involved in our flag football league. We run soccer year-round. We have a basketball league. We do softball and baseball. We have a summer team kickball league. And we do some unique non-traditional sports here at the club, like our dodgeball league, and we also play a lot of volleyball. Why that is so important for us at this level is because most of our kids can't afford to be in AAU sports. And I am a former AAU coach, and I know those things get sometimes expensive. So we are able to provide those skill buildings here for no charge. Our kids are able to take part in learning sports here with our staff. And they also get that team camaraderie that is so important, that extra incentive to be a part and create these relationships with like-minded kids. We house that here in our clubs, and it's such a special feeling that we see every day and we're able to be a part of. So we really spend a lot of time nurturing that relationships with our kids and how they take on sports and how they become involved in just building that confidence. We all know that sports goes beyond the physical image of what the benefits are. We know that today's media has spent so much money in telephones and the way kids are uploading their images, but we feel like our sole purpose for facilitating these sports and fitness programs is that we continuously want to be a part of them building that intimate relationship. We know that if they get that foundation here, it will last a lifetime. what we have also witnessed, and we have evidence-based data that says that our kids that are involved in sports and fitness are happier. They are less likely to be depressed. They have more self-confidence. They know who they are. They know their strengths. And you'll be able to see that in one of our teenagers that we have here today with us. They tend to be more productive. They're energized, and they're less likely to participate in risky behaviors like smoking and drinking and or hanging out with the wrong crowds. We know that. Our data proves that. One of the biggest things is that sports also bring our youth together. They're able to find this brotherhood or this sisterhood and be a part of the team. And even if it's for a short period of time, that feeling, that relationship, that amount of confidence, it lasts with them. And I think they seek that in other forms throughout their day. And they look for those things. So even if we can plant that seed that you will find sisterhood, they sometimes go on and become a part of their drama club or the debate team. So they use that in reference to kind of propel them to have enough confidence to walk on another stage. One of the things I also want to mention is during COVID-19, and I don't believe anybody was ready for it. We were not ready for that to land on our laps. And we really thought as an organization we would be opening our doors back up to service our members. But as soon as we knew that we were not going to, our team, and I'm so proud of Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta, they got really creative and they started to adapt quickly. One of the things that I was really responsible for leading the charge was with how we were going to keep our kids active, especially our teenagers who, will have a tendency to stay on their phones if they could. So I quickly created a Friday fitness challenge. We launched it on demand every Friday on our YouTube channel. What our Friday fitness challenges, what my vision was to make it a challenge, throw in some calisthenics and exercises that are easy but very intense. I really wanted them to be challenges because I wanted to include parents. I wanted them to include their peers, and I wanted them to have fun. We also had incentives. So anytime you talk about incentives and challenges, it's liable to get teenagers up and moving. And the response was phenomenal. Our kids participated in 6 weeks of fitness challenges. Some of them included workouts like Tabata workouts that are originated from like CrossFit. Some other workouts were like abdominal workouts, just abdominals. They did a fun 100 burpee challenge, which was tremendously hard. But like I said, the responses were amazing. Kids were saying that was harder than it read, and parents were saying that I'm working out with my kids, or that really motivated us as a family to get up. So I really found a lot of joy knowing that we were reaching kids in their homes when we really did not have our doors open. We also created a Club Connect event here at our clubs where we invited our kids and their families to come out and just play. You guys know we were in our homes for quite some time, so being able to come back out and be outdoors, we had a lot of successful kickball games and dodgeball games, which our kids just had a ball outside just playing. So we know the value of sports. We know the value of fitness. We know how it makes kids feel, and we know how it brings them together. Last but not least, I wanted to make sure that I continued to state that it's all about a relationship, and we don't force sports. We don't force fitness on our kids. It's a choice. We make sure that choice is inviting. We make sure that we always have incentives. We encourage them to participate, but through their participation, we know that they're going to build some confidence. They're going to develop some friendships, and they're going to develop some respect for a hard work ethic, which is invaluable, knowing that we want them to be successful adults. This relationship will last a lifetime, and we want to continuously make sure that we continue to water it and mold it while they're here, while they're receiving services from us. It's vital. It's something that we do, and as long as I'm a part of this organization and involved with youth, it's something I will continue to make sure that I advocate and implement at every level. Today I have with me one of our longtime members, and I want you guys to hear from her, being that she has been a part of our program for a long time. Her name is Nia Richardson. She is 17 years old. She has been a club member here at this club for 6 years. She's a senior at Sequoia High School here in Canton. She serves as the captain on the dance team. She also runs varsity track for the school as well. Nia is a former 2-year Youth of the Year candidate here at this club. She's been a junior staff, a summer intern. She's part of the Keystone and Career Bound team membership. She has her sights on going to Fisk University to study music business. And she's just an unbelievable role model for our members and her peers, and she's a huge help to the club staff. She is a reason why I have been so successful at this job. And I just want you guys to please help me welcome Nia Richardson.
Hello. Hello, guys. Hi, how are you? My name is Nia Richardson. I'm 17, and personal fitness has always been something that came natural to me. I always played sports. I've always been the only girl on the team. So being here at my local Boys and Girls Club has really, just even pushed me more to be the more athletic person that I can be. I did basketball when I was in 6th grade here, and I was like the underdog. I was the only girl on the team, and somehow they still embraced me and taught me different mindset skills and different teamwork ethic. And it went from basketball to flag football to running track for girls. So just all together, it has been constant back-to-back sports and team memberships that I've been a part of. Being a teen girl, the health benefits, for an up-and-coming performing artist such as myself, it helps with dance, and it also helps with just being able to keep up and stamina, as well as just being healthy in general. Strong relationship with physical activity will help you as an adult altogether. It'll keep you going, keep your mind fresh and healthy. You'll always be on the go and on the move to do your next deed or your next study. Physical activity also helps you just making good choices and to lessen risky behaviors such as drinking and smoking. I've been in leadership positions because of my Boys and Girls Club activities and being an athlete here, such as YOY Youth of the Year, Keystone Conference, and different dance competitions as well. To persevere, it also helped me stay on course as well. With school, it gave me a mindset not only to persevere, but to do it in excellence, just as if I was on a team with other people. So that has also been a great benefit. And to also give me an incentive to make good grades. And it also gave me the skill to multitask, being a student, and to help balance out social life and academic working skills. It also motivated me to try out for the track team for the first time last year, and I made it on varsity, and I won at least 3, 4, 5 races. So that has really been something that I've been proud of, and all with the work of the Boys and Girls Club helping me with my stamina and things like that, I've been able to improve, and so I really do thank y'all for that. Girls on the Run was a club here for the girls to run track and to get healthy and to get fit, because normally girls here don't really, they don't really want to go outside in their teenage years. They rather do their nails or do their hair, which is something that is very common. But here at the Boys and Girls Club, when it first opened up, I was very excited, and I was very, very passionate about it, because you don't see that a lot. You don't see girls going outside and getting their hands dirty when it comes to football, running, or just to get sweaty even. We always like to be cute and classy. So I thought that was something that was very intriguing and something that could benefit a lot of people. As well as kickball. Our traditional kickball league that we have here also opened up many doors for me as well, as not only being athletic, but also being a team leader and to help coach and to just be that number one person that can help you. As well as flag football, yes, I was able to referee and to also get skills and gain knowledge. And that is how the Boys and Girls Club has helped me. So, thank you.
Mia and Keisha, you guys are amazing. I feel like I want you guys to just finish for the rest. I could listen to you guys talk forever, and you are both such an inspiration. Keisha, I can only imagine how Mia is just inspired by just being in the Boys and Girls Club and having a mentor like you. And Mia, I know why and how Keisha is so motivated to come to work every day of your example. And so we're so impressed by you. We're so honored to have you guys join us. So thankful that you were able to skip out of school for a little bit to educate us on just what sports has meant to you. And so God bless you guys. Thank you for the work you do. And I really, really hope that we can actually meet in person very soon, because I know our council members and I would be so honored to be able to see the work that you guys do at the club. And Mia, just to see just the forces in that club that have made you to be the amazing woman that you are right now. You're an example to everyone around you, and I love that you're encouraging your girlfriends to get dirty and start getting active. So thank you both so much. God bless you, and you're welcome to stick around for the rest, but I know you probably have some sports or schoolwork to get to. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye. And guys, now we are going to turn to another section of our meeting, which is the Science Board presentation. Dr. Nan and Dr. Brad Cardinal, you guys have a big presentation to follow, but I know you guys are going to step up to the plate. As I mentioned, everyone, the Science Board is now reinstated officially as a subcommittee of the President's Council, and they have been hard at work since January to put together a really substantive and amazing report on the benefits of youth sports and the science and evidence-based practices that support the work that we know and love. And so I'm really excited to turn it over to the two of them to take us through a joint presentation. So Dr. Brad Cardinal, our co-chair, and Nan Hayworth, our council member, feel free to turn your cameras on and get going.
Thank you so much, Christina. And in just a moment, all of our friends and colleagues are going to hear from our chair of the Science Board, Dr. Brad Cardinal. I'm just running through a few introductory slides with all of you. And, the Science Board has, as Christina mentioned, it's been reconstituted for us in this cycle, and I think it's a wonderful thing. It was first established in 2003. As a subcommittee, and it assists us in the council by providing scientific guidance supporting the council's mission and work. And for this year in 2021, it's been part of and a support for, it's been resumed to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy, about which, of course, we have heard from our speakers today. And the Science Board's charge is to provide subject matter expertise in youth sports and related disciplines, to support the council through developing useful materials such as science-based fact sheets, ensuring that all program execution is aligned with youth sports research, and to present a summary from activities from the past year, including report on youth sports, fact sheet, which you will receive if you haven't already, summarizing scientific research on the benefits of youth sports at our meeting, here this annual meeting, and to act on the guidance and direction that the council establishes. And of course, we're going to have a discussion after the presentation to determine exactly what council members would like to see happen as a result of this and in response to and guided by this report. Our 2020 to 2021 Science Board members are our chair, Dr. Bradley Cardinal, Dr. Matthew Bowers, Dr. Aaron Centeo, Dr. Travis Dorsch, Dr. Cara Ebeling, Dr. Cynthia Labella, Dr. Felipe Lobello, Catherine Lucas, Dr. Catherine Lucas, Dr. Karen Allor Pfeiffer, Dr. Matthew Robinson, Dr. Alan Smith, Dr. John Spengler, and Dr. Meredith Whitley. And I am also a member of the council, privileged to be as the board as the President's Council representative. Our deliverables, as I mentioned, are a report on youth sports and a fact sheet on the benefit of youth sports, on the benefits of youth sports. And the aim is to support our work as a council to uplift and promote the recommendations and the action items and the opportunities in the National Youth Sports Strategy, so crucial to improve our youth sports landscape. And as mentioned, we're going to have, I know, a lot to discuss on the basis of the very interesting report that you're about to hear. And just a couple of refresher words on the National Youth Sports Strategy. It was released in 2019. It's an important first step to reorient U.S. youth sports culture around a shared vision that one day all youth, like Mia, from whom we heard so inspiringly just now, will have the opportunity, motivation, and access to play sports regardless of their race, ethnicity, sex, ability, or zip code. And I just want to mention very quickly that the work of these scholars has been so diligent and so thorough, and I was privileged to listen to the meetings that they had together over the past several months. I think you're going to be, I know you're going to be very impressed by what Dr. Brad Cardinal, our chairman, has to share with you. And with that, it is my great privilege to introduce Dr. Bradley Cardinal. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nan, and good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to represent the work of the Science Board before such an esteemed audience. I also want to let the audience members know that the full report, which is 31 pages long, as well as the fact sheet, an additional 2 pages, has additional substantive comments that will not be covered in the full during today's presentation. So I do encourage you to look at those documents. Let's see if I've got my... The ancient Greeks' influence on Western civilization is undeniable. Many of their contributions have stood the test of time. Shown here in the upper left-hand corner is the Temple of Concordia, one of Greece's best preserved architectural structures, now 2,459 years old. But even older are some of the ideas and thoughts of the ancient Greeks, one of those being sports. 3 central themes of Greek society have been preserved in the architectural structures at the ancient Olympia UNESCO World Heritage Site: government, religion, and sports. Sports are at least 2,795 years old today, September 17th to September 17th. The structural integrity of Greek architecture has also influenced the design of government buildings in the United States, such as the National Gallery of Art. A similar structure provided the framework for our scientific report. Before getting to that, though, please allow me to overview the report, including its premise and purpose. A healthy nation starts with healthy citizens, and sports is one of the most powerful ways to promote healthy habits for a lifetime. The purpose of our report was to equip the Council with a deeper scientific understanding of why youth sports matter and how to promote key features of the National Youth Sports Strategy. Youth sports matter because they contribute to healthy personal development, education, community building, and our nation's culture. They capture people's interest and imagination. They connect people and they connect communities. They offer extensive cognitive, emotional, physical, and social benefits. But for these benefits to be realized, an informed and intentional effort is required. Against this backdrop, I'm now ready to show you how the report was constructed. A little technical difficulty. For this to occur, youth sports must be accessible for all, organized to meet youth developmental needs, and delivered by qualified leaders focused on education and safety. They also must be structured to enable broad participation from childhood to adolescence and into adulthood. Now, against this backdrop, I'm ready to show you how the report was constructed. In our conceptual framework, we tried to develop something that, similar to the Temple of Concordia and the National Gallery of the Art, was built to last. At the base of our conceptual model is the foundational work released in 2019, the National Youth Sports Strategy. From that, we've added 4 pillars to promote or support the scientific work that we've accomplished: making youth sports accessible, optimizing the youth sports experience, parenting, coaching, and mentoring youth, and fostering lifelong participation and retention in sports. On top of that, we've added a rooftop that is a fact sheet or a series of benefits around youth sports. Each pillar in the presentation aligns with a chapter in the written report. As I introduce each chapter, a similar format will be followed. That is the chapter's premise, a series of overarching recommendations, and a list of suggestions regarding here's what you can do as members of the council to help amplify the National Youth Sports Strategy and use the resources that we've created. In Chapter 2 of the report, you learn about making youth sports accessible. This is going to be the first pillar in the report, and it will carry with it 4 overarching recommendations, as well as 8, here's what you can do as council member strategies or suggestions. The premise of this chapter is that people need places to play and compete, to feel welcomed and encouraged to participate. But access is more than just physical places, spaces, and equipment. Access also encompasses economic, emotional, and social factors, all of which must be supported by appropriate policies and rules. As I indicated, this is the first pillar in the report, and there are 4 overarching recommendations: shared use and access to sports in communities with lower participation, access to sports for girls, and access to sports for children with disabilities. We need to make our play spaces accessible and affordable. You've heard a little bit about that from other speakers today already. This can be accomplished in one way through strategic partnerships. And if you're wondering whether strategic partnerships work, they do. In one study, a community with open school grounds had youth 85% more active compared to another with closed school grounds. We've heard also about lower participation rates across different communities. In these communities, we need safe, high-quality facilities and recreational areas. But we do know that disparities exist and that there are income disparities across different communities and communities of color. One way to address this is to locate sports facilities in areas that are safe and accessible by walking, biking, and shared or public transportation. We've also heard about the disparity between girls and boys' participation in sports. And girls are also more likely to drop out, not only a lower participation rate, but a higher dropout rate. Options for sports and physical activity that are diverse, accessible, appealing, and safe are necessary, such as the ones that Nia described in her own personal experiences just a few moments ago. 1 in 5 Americans has a disability, and youth with disabilities often encounter barriers when they try to access sports opportunities. Access to sports facilities and programs promotes longevity, improves quality of life, and reduces healthcare costs irrespective of disability status. So as council members, we encourage you to think about doing the following. There's 8 points. Raise awareness for and support of shared use locally and nationally, promoting that idea. Support improvements to sport and play environments. If you see a play environment that doesn't look up to par, encourage people to do something about it. Invite women to serve as youth sports coaches. Promote the positive portrayal of girls and women in sports, and encourage greater media coverage of girls and women in sports. These are all evidence-based strategies that are highlighted in the report and discussed in greater detail in that written report. Additionally, use inclusive terminology when you're working with or engaging with the public. So youth with disabilities versus disabled youth, or athletes with disabilities versus disabled athletes. Promote the inclusion of youth with disabilities in sports and encourage greater media coverage of sports for individuals with disabilities. The third chapter of the written report discusses optimizing the youth sports experience. This is going to be the second pillar of our conceptual model. There'll be 6 overarching recommendations, but we're going to really focus on 2 for this presentation today. And there will be 5, here's what you can do, recommendations. In a moment, I'll show you, we'll highlight the 2nd and the 5th, and I'll also give you further information about making sports safe. Before doing that, whether youth benefit from sports depends largely on how the programs in which they participate are created and delivered. Parents and caregivers, coaches and teachers, healthcare providers and others provide the context in which youth experience sports. No matter how well-intentioned, those individuals may not have the knowledge, preparation, or skills necessary to provide an optimal youth sports experience. So there's a great deal of variability. This becomes the second pillar of our scientific report. And as I said, there's 6 overarching recommendations, but for the purposes of the presentation today, we're going to focus on fun and youth-driven goals in sports, as well as prioritizing safety. For 9 out of 10 youth, the number one reason they play sports is to have fun. So we need to make the experiences fun by creating positive learning environments. Too much pressure or intensity can harm rather than help youth. And we have to remember that youth are not mini adults. This will be a theme in other parts of the report as well. For 8 to 16-year-olds, the top 5 fun factors are feeling welcomed and included, having the opportunity to try their best, a positive team-coach dynamic, developing competence, and getting time to play. As I said, there are 6 overarching recommendations. The first was fun. The second I'm going to focus on today is prioritizing safety. Sports have some inherent risks. We know that. So we want to try to develop these opportunities in the safest way possible to minimize the risk of injury, stress, burnout, and abuse. So we want to ensure a safe physical environment. We want to ensure that there's a proper selection for coaches, volunteers, and other personnel that are involved. We want to optimize prevention of and response to physical injuries that might occur. And we want to optimize the culture of safety and fitness for the youth that participate. For this, there is a checklist on page 13 of the written report that I encourage you to look at. It gives a great deal of specificity about some of the characteristics associated with safe participation in sport. Whoops. Five things that the council members, we think you can do, 5 suggestions for you to consider. To discourage people from modeling youth sports programs after adult professional programs or structures. Encourage diverse forms of structure, organization, and competition levels, another theme we'll hear more about shortly. Convey the value of sports sampling. Distribute the safety checklist for youth sports, again on page 13 of the written report, and promote standards for training adult leaders. The 4th chapter of the written report focuses on parenting, coaching, and mentoring youth. This is the 3rd pillar of our conceptual model. It'll have 4 overarching recommendations, as well as 4 here's what you can do strategies or suggestions. Again, I want to emphasize that there are many more details in the report about things beyond council members that you might consider doing across these various chapters and pillars that I'm introducing. So I strongly encourage you to look at the written report. Parents, coaches, and mentors have the ability and responsibility to design and deliver developmentally appropriate sports experiences and to engage with athletes and one another in constructive ways. This becomes the 3rd pillar in our conceptual model, where we have 4 overarching recommendations, and again, greater detail in the report about each of these and strategies that might be implemented across the various sectors. First is treating sports as education, teaching inclusivity, focusing on balance, and rewarding outcomes that reflect values. Youth sports have become more competitive, with adults focusing more on performance-related tasks rather than developmental outcomes. Adults need to maintain a strong complementary focus on enhancing young people's physical, mental, and emotional knowledge and behavior. Explicit or implicit biases may be directed towards youth in subgroups defined by race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, weight, size, gender identity, sexual orientation, or disability. These explicit or implicit biases oftentimes result in players being put into specific positions that reinforce various stereotypes and do not encourage full participation across the spectrum of activities that the youth might want to participate in. Therefore, these biases falsely shape expectations. They can drain enthusiasm, and they can cause youth to drop out of sports and avoid future physical activity. Uh-oh. Youth and their parents are being asked to dedicate greater amounts of time and money to fewer sports at younger ages. Early sports specialization and investment have been linked with higher rates of psychological burnout, overuse injuries, and dropout from participation. Moreover, it doesn't increase the youth's likelihood of reaching an elite level in sports. Success in youth sports is often defined by a narrow set of performance-related outcomes like skill acquisition, competition, and winning. While these are important aspects of the sports experience, you heard those being described by Keisha and how they get children and youth excited, but they also need to be balanced with social benefits of participation. Again, thinking back to the factors related to fun. So as council members, here's what we think you can do. Discourage restrictive play rules and overscheduling, promote positive and effective interactions with diverse cultures, encourage the exploration of new interests and the development of new social relationships, shape the sports-related values of families, organizations, and communities by placing a strong emphasis on sustainable enjoyment, health, and fitness for a lifetime. The fifth chapter and fourth pillar relate to fostering lifelong participation and retention in sports. The premise of this chapter is that about a third of youth sports participants quit each year, and 70% of youth who start in sports programs are no longer playing by the time they reach adolescence. We saw a little bit of that data presented earlier. Youth sports program leaders and mentors can help young athletes and their families not only start playing, but also continue playing. In this chapter, you'll see 5 overarching recommendations, and again, greater detail in the report, as well as 4 here what you can do strategies. This is the fourth pillar. Allow youth to discover, learn, and play. Give youth opportunities to develop and be challenged. Provide opportunities for youth to train and compete. Offer pathways for youth to excel in high-performance sports, as well as to participate and succeed in diverse activities, and to instill habits that will inspire lifelong participation and foster mentoring. For this, we're following the American Development Model that was developed by the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee in 2014. This is a stage-based model, but progression across stages is not absolutely necessary. The model encompasses the full spectrum of youth sports from novice to high performance. And the final stage, Thrive and Mentor, can be achieved by anyone, irrespective of previous sports engagement. Anyone can role model an active lifestyle, and anyone can serve the next generation as youth sports coach, mentor, official, or volunteer. We want to give youth a chance to enjoy activity with their peers, to be part of their group, and discover and develop their unique abilities in a welcoming and accepting environment. This is in the early stages of the American Development Model. We want positive parental involvement, feelings of competence and recognition, affiliation with peers, and excitement can all foster enjoyment among youth. In the next stage, we want to give youth opportunities to develop and be challenged. Motivation. Okay, someone else has control of the screen right now. I'm not sure what's going on with the screen. So let me go to this. Let me see if I can get back in charge. All right, we're back. Motivation increases when youth see their skills improve. Youth take on more responsibility for their own development. And competitive excitement and recognition may contribute to enjoyment in this second stage. In the third stage, we want to give opportunities for youth to train and to compete. This is really starting at about the age of 13 and older. Youth want to succeed and to compete, to create friendships, and to feel they're part of a peer group. Again, we heard Nia describe some of her own personal experiences with this. In this context, we want healthy, non-judgmental attitudes about participation and winning to be promoted, defined, and reinforced. In the fourth stage, we see youth having 2 opportunities, one to excel in high performance and one to participate and succeed in diverse activities. With only about 54% of high school students report being on a sports team, the athletic development model, the American Development Model, has 2 pathways. One designed to keep youth active and one to design to allow youth to compete. These are not mutually exclusive pathways. Another way to think of it would be competition perhaps versus recreation or lifetime activities or formal and informal settings. This is really at the age of around 15 years and older, and again, the opportunity to excel in high performance as well as participate and succeed so that all youth can stay involved and we don't see those dropout rates. Here we want to, in the first side, we want to instill what we think will inspire lifelong participation. In the fifth stage, instill lifelong habits that will inspire lifelong participation and foster mentoring. Here we want to encourage youth to continue their participation. Again, adults can actively role model for other people. And we want to see people giving back to sports through their coaching, officiating, and mentoring future generations. To do this, we need to have well-constructed, well-designed experiences that youth are excited about and drawn to, as opposed to repelled from. And again, we saw various degrees of participation and dropout rates around this idea. So as council members, here are a few suggestions as what you might be able to do to help us achieve this. Educate parents about what to expect as youth develop. Encourage effort and development over outcomes, like winning. Promote sports science concepts such as healthy diet, nutrition, strength and conditioning, and sports psychology to enhance performance both in sports and beyond. Many of those skills are transferable. And to encourage young people to consider careers in coaching or officiating, again, when you're engaging with the public. In summary, the written scientific report makes 19 general recommendations and a number of additional specific recommendations that are based in science. There's a number of identified issues and needs within the report that I encourage you again to look at. We've tried to write the report in an accessible manner, and it's supported by 193 contemporary interdisciplinary scientific citations. So it covers a wide variety of scientific literature. On top of this, we also have the opportunity to develop a fact sheet on the benefits of youth sports. And again, this is the roof of our conceptual framework. We think that it can help launch all that everyone's doing around this idea and the totality of the collection of work. The premise of this was to identify the benefits of youth sports from contemporary scientific literature and to create a document that highlights the benefits of youth sports and to encourage participation. We wanted this document to appeal to a wide range of audiences, to be concise, to list verified benefits, which I'll mention something about in a moment, and to be written in easy to understand terms. And in fact, we've got 5 general types of benefits summarized in the fact sheet. Ten of those relate to mental, emotional, and social health, which we've also been hearing a lot about this afternoon on the call. 8 relate to physical health. 7, educational and career success. 4, lifelong participation. And 2, centered around economic and community impact. And I think Clay's presentation also addressed some of these kinds of issues. Along with this, there are 6 suggestions as to what you as council members might be able to do. Promote the benefits of youth sports using the fact sheet and using the report that we've created. We think this will give you great confidence in speaking about the benefits. Share the fact sheet, bring it to and leave it behind at speaking engagements, use it with your social media posts, and truly try to ignite communities and organizations into action. As individuals, we can only do so much. One of the things the council can particularly do, given your stature, is to excite other people, motivate and inspire them to put in the perspiration that's necessary to truly achieve the overarching objectives of the National Youth Sports Strategy. What we're aiming to do is to affect positive changes in the youth sports culture of America. So the Science Board report on youth sports and the benefits of youth sports fact sheet were created to support your work in uplifting and promoting the recommendations, the action items, and the opportunities in the National Youth Sports Strategy to improve the sports landscape in the United States. I need to thank several people. The report and fact sheet truly reflect the collective talents of the entire Science Board. Many other people working in the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, Department of Health and Human Services, and the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, as well as many others who conducted, participated, and disseminated their research for which the report and fact sheet are based. 193 citations in the report itself, 49 scientific citations that underline each of the specific benefits of youth sports. All of those are referenced so that anyone can go and look and see exactly where the information came from. And there are many people on today's call who contribute to this as well, the scientific work as well as the reports themselves. As the slide indicates, there are many people's fingerprints all over the report, and we all owe them a debt of gratitude for their excellent contributions. Thank you all, and thank you for your attention this afternoon.
Thank you so very much, Brad, and for Nan as well, and to the Science Board members. As you can see from Brad's presentation, this is an incredible report that they've been able to put together, like I said, in such a short amount of time with so much scientific research backing up evidence-based practices to promote the National Youth Sports Strategy and also to promote the specific work of the Council. And so, Council members, as we transition to our deliberation section, I encourage you all to be thinking about this valuable information as we discuss next steps of how we can further work to implement the Youth Sports Strategy. And with that, it is time to hear from all of our amazing Council members. So for the next hour, we're going to go into a discussion time, and we're going to discuss topics related to the Science Board report and fact sheet, to talk about continued efforts to implement the National Youth Sports Strategy, and also about COVID-19 and the current state of play. And so, Council members, this is your opportunity to share your experiences, your ideas, and questions with each other and with our audience. And when you have a response to a question, do you all see at the very top of your screen, there's a little figure with a hand raised. When you have a response to a question, click on that button, and then when I call on you, press your Start Webcam, and make sure you don't just start the webcam, but you also share the webcam. So click that button twice so we can see your beautiful faces. I am actually going to start by handing things over to Dr. Nan Hayworth, who's going to help me moderate this first batch of deliberation questions related to the Science Board and the work of the National Youth Sports Strategy. I will then moderate the last part of the deliberation with a couple questions and reflections on COVID-19 and the state of play. So over to you, Nan. I'm very excited to hear from our Council members. You're on mute, I think.
I am so sorry, as am I.
There you go.
Forgive me, everyone. And I'd like to extend thanks once more. You can tell, obviously, from the detail and the thoughtful quality of this presentation, how much work the Council and our Chairman, Dr. Cardinal, did on this. Because they are dedicated, as is the team at ODPHP and HHS and all of the Council members. So now is our opportunity as Council members during this meeting to address specifics that you have in mind. Christina's going to help me because we're going to move some slides around possibly. So if you can watch your screens as well. I'm going to pose some questions. I'm going to pose them via audio, and you should have them in front of you as well. I'm going to start with this one. Is there anything, and you can see it, is there anything in the report or the fact sheet that's remarkable to you, Council members, as novel or as unique, something you didn't know before, because that obviously helps us to determine what we want to do with this cornucopia of information. So, do we see any hands up?
We've got Ashley Lundvall. Why don't you turn your video on and speak with us? And just make sure you unmute your phone as well.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you, and then just make sure you share your video screen so we can see you too.
You see me now?
Click the share one more time. There you go. Yep, we can see
there
you.
There we go. Hi, Nan. Well, first of all, thank you so much for all the work that went into this. I've been flipping through it the last several days, and I'm pleasantly overwhelmed with the amount of information that you guys have come up with and just how important you've taken all of this. And so that's so appreciated. And it's not really a question, but just something I wanted to say in appreciation for you guys. As a person with a disability, these last several months have been very eye-opening to me because I hope it's brought a lot of awareness to people about the feelings of isolation and the feelings of not being able to go out and participate and having to adapt on the fly, because that's how people with disabilities kind of live every day. And so I'm thankful in that regard for that awareness that's come out. But I'm so thankful in looking through the information how much you promoted inclusivity. For the longest time, folks with disabilities and other people in the sports world that were different for some reason were kind of put onto either their own team or their own area, and people thought that was a good idea and a way to include people. And so I really appreciate that you guys have understood that the opposite is what's important, that we need to be inclusive and bring everyone together, and that it doesn't really do us any good to isolate and separate people, but to bring everyone together to participate in sports and to stay active. And so I just wanted to personally thank you guys for making it a point to show everyone how important that is. And I hope it's just a good awareness bit of information for everyone about the importance of inclusivity. So thank you guys so much for your work.
Ashley, thank you for your work with this council and for your example. And may I ask you a follow-up, if you will, to your very perceptive comments based on experience that we all need to incorporate into the way we think about youth sports. What do you have a sense, Ashley, based on the past few months, which have indeed been remarkable in everyone's lives for just the reasons you mentioned, in your discussions with friends and colleagues and folks in your community, do you get the sense that the awareness of which you spoke is actually something that's actionable for us? In other words, now you know what it's like. What are you going to do differently?
I think it is it's very good that it's come up, and a lot of my friends and family and other people that I've talked to, I've used it as an opportunity to not only bring awareness, but also a lot of mental health awareness. People for the first time sometimes in their life are experiencing loneliness and depression and isolation for the very first time. And so it's been great I hate to say great, but if I'm taking something positive out of this pandemic, it's brought that awareness to the surface. And for people to firsthand now understand what it's like to be isolated or to not have access to things or to feel depressed and alone, I hope that if one good thing comes out of all this, that awareness will continue when things get back to whatever normal will look like, that people will remember that and remember how they felt and will reach out to others that really live like that every day. And so I just hope and pray that we're able to bring that one point out of all this, that it just makes us more compassionate to other people that deal with these type of feelings on an everyday basis, but it also challenges us to try to eliminate that as much as possible now that we've all experienced it together. And so I hope we can move forward and make things inclusive for everyone.
So there are benefits for all of us in this, of course, and benefits we hope that may have been opportunities that were missed before for folks who have physical differences. But knowing that all of us do better when we have the action and interaction that sports provide. Thank you, Ashley. We have a question from our fellow member, Brenda Becker.
Hello, I'm going
Not
to
a
try to
question,
get my camera on.
Brenda, a comment. Sorry, a comment.
No, I'm so impressed by what you and the team did in the science group. Just amazing. I love the one-pager on the facts. I already shared it with my company to see if we can't do some things with that. But one of the things that surprised me is the 70% of youth that through adolescence drop out of sports. So I was intrigued with Chapter 5 on the American Development Model, the ADM, and how we keep our youth engaged in long-term participant and then go into, like all of us now, older folk, that stay active. So I'm very interested in how we get that word out, because it's a really good program that you've laid out of how to keep people engaged and how it starts with their coaches. And so my focus is just how do we get that word out and lay out a model program around the country for people to follow and to understand why kids are dropping out.
Yeah. And Brenda, that is the vital question, I think, and one that the board hoped, indeed, just what you said, that what they brought to us in terms of the science and these science evidence-based recommendations, given the position of the council members, all of you, within your respective worlds and our country,
right?
How you're going to carry this forward, because these are messages that members of the council are conspicuously well positioned to promote. So, Brenda, what do you envision your company doing with this?
Well, one of the things we've been looking at is with our foundation, I've raised with them of, ours has been about healthcare disparities and things like that. But I said this is really part of that is our youth and making sure that we can help through grants and other things to help those who are less fortunate to even be able to pay to participate in sports. So that's one thing we're looking at right now, and I think we can talk to other companies. Also, I'm looking at what I heard today about the 42 partners, youth sports champions, and I'm thinking that's a good messaging to get some of this stuff out to them so that they can get it out further to their group.
No, that's Brenda. Thank you. That's great information and great thought. And I'm going to mention to our fellow council members, Chris Teesey, you're up next. As you probably have noticed, Christina has thoughtfully prepared several questions for us. And they're all formally represented on individual slides. We're going to end up probably even just in this initial discussion with the initial springboard question, covering much of this content. So, feel free to dive in while the energy's there, and, we'll keep going through all our questions, mindful of the time limits that you all have. Chris Teesey, would you please join us and let us hear your comments?
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure how the video works, but I hope everyone can at least hear me. I clicked on my webcam once.
Click one more time, Chris. Yep, click share one more time.
Okay, is it working?
Do you see on the bottom of your video preview that it says share video?
No, but I can't find it, but I'm just going to speak if that's okay.
Sure.
Until you would think after 6 months, everyone would kind of get the hang of almost all of these apps, but we're all working through it, right? My comment was obviously it was great to participate, and then the science deck was really great. I feel like there's a lot of actionable statistics in there. The question that was on the screen a few seconds ago was really around, did you learn anything, or kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, what was some of the takeaways? And I feel like there was some incredibly actionable data points in that deck. As a person who kind of has more of a background in marketing and in business, I felt like there's some things that we could kind of look at here today and time permitting and of course offline around how to execute on, as an example, that 70% number, one that just comes to mind right now, how the dropout rate, right? Mm-hmm. And in that drop-off rate, in conjunction with the idea that today, I believe at least, especially on a higher socioeconomic level, you have so many youth sports that are so competitive, and the concept of not treating youth sports the same way, maybe even older youth sports, if you will, as it gets more and more competitive. The competitiveness is so profound and so quick that it kind of pushes people away because the mentality is more towards, not being some of those key points and takeaways, being fun, being engaging, being intimidating, all of those kinds of things, and then disseminating those statistics around the message to the people who are actually coaching these teams, the people who are actually bringing around and essentially on the front lines, if you will, of team sports, of youth sports. I think there's something in there to take away from that 70% dropout rate and those key takeaways on the science side and the research side around how people can do that, how they can disseminate that. So I was incredibly, to me, the data was incredibly informative, and it just makes me think about ways to action it. And I think that at the end of the day is always the most important thing. How can you action these data points?
And you're right, Chris, and that is exactly the idea. And indeed, there are initiatives in this report for, as we all know, they can be directed toward the kids themselves, toward the coaches, toward parents, and they can all be approached in ways that would be most meaningful for them. So, Chris, thank you. We have Rob Wilkins is next. Rob, please join us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Nan, and for the council for all your work, and also for your board, man. They did an amazing job, and I feel like I'm armed with a lot of evidence, science-based evidence to attack folks who want to put up barriers to why, we need exercise in sports. But I also wanted to follow up a bit with what Ashley said. Being inclusive, having inclusive sports is so important. I volunteered at an event at our local high school this year, and one of the most important things that the kids who volunteered, who are high school seniors, said they volunteered to this particular event because it included other folks. It brought kids who had some handicaps, some physical challenges, some mental challenges, but it was the most fun event for them. It was a basketball tournament, and all these kids got together, they played, they had a great time, and it wasn't about the sport. It was about getting together and showing kids how to play sports, or kids who had challenges, having them participate with kids who were maybe all-stars in sports. So bringing people together was a really, really important part of this inclusive event, and I think that the more that we can include people, the more we bring people together, the better off we'll be.
Couldn't agree more, Robin. That truly is one of the crucial goals of this report, as we all know, and that's why we are so glad to have you and our members here because you'll know exactly what to do based on the kind of experiences that you bring to this that you just described. And thank you. And we've got Jim Worthington to follow up. Jim, come on board. Let's hear from you, sir.
All right, let's try to see if I can figure this out. Start my webcam. How's that?
There you go.
All right.
Hey, perfect.
By the way, the information's incredible. It's in depth. It's amazing what you guys did. So thank you. I did want to ask a question though, and wanted to know in real time because I think I'm not sure when all this was compiled and where we are today. But I do want to make a couple comments on the increased resource sharing and the partnerships. It was mentioned earlier that when you have a community where the schools are available, the facilities are available, you have 85% more participation. Of course, we know the schools aren't open right now, and many of them are not opening for a while, and they're not letting people from the outside utilize them anytime. And then, as Clay Walker had mentioned earlier in his report, which was outstanding, that 40% of the youth sports operations are shutting down, and I happen to be in that business, it really creates an issue where I know with the National Youth Sports Strategy report that fun was the number one reason why people stopped, but cost was the other reason. So I think you've got these colliding things that are happening where these kids, even if they want to participate, have nowhere to go. And then when it is available, it's usually tiered to the most the best, so-called best athletes, and at a cost that's exorbitant. So I just wanted to mention in real time on the ground here out on Main Street, it's probably even worse than what we think right now. And I'll give you an example. I have a gymnasium at one health club where typically that would be rent for maybe $150 an hour for the entire court. And by the way, I don't do this, so please understand that I've been offered $500 an hour for that court time. Now, I won't do it because I have members that participate in my club, and I would not block them out. But this is what I'm hearing all across the country, and kids just don't have the facilities. And, of course, with the weather changing here, particularly in the north, northeast, Midwest, I mean, it's going to get worse. So I just wanted to make that statement there based on what I read here. It looks like in real time it's even worse than we thought. So thank you.
Jim, thank you. And council members, you're aware from Christina's very detailed email that she sent around in the past day or so. We are going to talk in the second half of our discussion about the situation on the ground, particularly concerning COVID. And I know there's a lot of specifics we can share on that. Clay Walker has sent a comment. Clay, did you want to raise your hand and talk? Okay. Anyway, we need Congress to pass PAIT, the FIT bill, to PHIT, to deal with the problem Jim's raising. Understood, Jim? Yes. And thank you both. And here is the next specific question. I think we've covered some of this, but I want to hear more or invite more from you. What are some concrete ways the council can use these Science Board materials to promote the National Youth Sports Strategy and increase awareness of the benefits of youth sports in America? Kyle Snyder? Kyle, would you like to comment on this?
Sure. I was going to comment on the last question.
So go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I was just thinking about my own youth sport experience and how inclusivity is addressed in what we went over today. And, I mean, when I look back on my own time playing youth sports, inclusivity was never talked about. And the only people that I cared about when I was a kid playing sports was the people who could score touchdowns and take people down on the wrestling mat, which isn't the right way to think, but that's just the way that I was taught, and it's the way that I thought when I was a kid. But, you know, I think that it's really important, and it stuck out to me here just how important it is for us to think about making everyone on the team feel important, and because at the end of the day, that's going to give you the best team, and that's going to allow you to produce the best results anyways. But and of course, it's going to help for the rest of your life, and building better leaders and people who are going to be more motivated to coach and help other people. So that stuck out to me.
Thank you, Kyle. The report really does inspire thoughts about the totality of the benefits of sports, inclusivity, global benefits that go far beyond simply competitive aspects. There's nothing simple about competitive aspects, but certainly the fitness for all of us and a lifelong sustainability, crucial points. If council members don't have any specifics for us about question number 2, I'm going to go to question 3. Christina, if that's okay, which is how can the council help others understand, and, you know, what Kyle was talking about gets to part of this too, the cultural and contextual factors in the community that can overcome disparities in access to sports. So Julie's here, Boys and Girls Clubs. This is certainly your field. Tell us more.
Sure. Can you hear me? I had raised my hand on the second one, but I'll weave some of the comments I was going to make into this. But first, just want to applaud you and the board for really incredible work. You know, reading through it, it underscored and reminded me why we do the work that we do, honestly, at Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And, you know, I think a couple of things. I think especially today, when we think about equity and when we think about providing access to providing access to experiences and opportunities to all kids, no matter who they are, where they're from, or the circumstances that they're in. I think it's really important that, you know, we have a strategy to help galvanize philanthropy. You know, I work a lot in philanthropy and development, and, you know, there's a great deal of focus for all the right reasons around things like workforce readiness and workforce development. And, you know, if you think about STEM and all the attention and the focus and the philanthropy behind STEM, I think we have a unique opportunity to do something similar, to really galvanize philanthropy around the importance. Like, this isn't just going to the gym and shooting some hoops. I mean, these are life skills. This is how we start to really, at a young age, which is most important, address the health issues that right now are in some ways paralyzing our communities, our nations, our businesses, and linked directly to workforce. And I think, too, thinking about could this council, or maybe it's the science board or some combination, really lay out a recommended policy agenda to help not only bring it to the top of the list. This isn't just a nice to have, this is a necessity, right? I go back to the Surgeon General's comments to us a year ago around over 70% of young adults not qualifying for military service, right? We have to really get this at the forefront. So I think thinking through what some policy recommendations and prioritizations could be, convening philanthropy, kind of making this, and I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but it's the first thing that came to mind, making sports again as sexy as STEM, right? It's sports, it's that play, and it's STEM, it's the hard skills that we need. It's so critical. And could we also, you know, when we think about the disparities in access, could we also think about convening all the major leagues, whether it be the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, all the different sports leagues for a summit and bring them together? Because my guess is there's probably a common thing they could agree on, which is we need more young people engaged in their sports. And many of them are, you know, I know one of the recommendations was not to always focus on the adult role models in competitive sports, but they can help deliver that message. And I think that would be really important as well.
Yes. Julie, thank you. And I think Clay Walker had a comment for us. Yes, on leagues, because as soon as you said that, Julie, I thought of Clay with the Youth Sports Foundation. So great thought. And maybe, Clay, I'm sure you have ideas on how that kind of convener role could be fulfilled together with members of the council. Julie, thank you. And Linda Yaccarino. Linda, join us.
Hello. I hope you can see me and hear me. Is that right?
Yes.
Hi all. Hi everyone. It is a true honor to be with all of you today, and I thought today was great. And as I have been sitting here listening to whether it's the sports board and Nan, I feel like I always see you because I'm a big fan and I see you on TV all the time. So thank you for doing everything you're doing. It doesn't go unnoticed. But when I see all the work that the science board has done, the comments from Nan and specifically Clay. But Julie, I think your comments were right that it's a combination of efforts, and it's not just one thing. It's the intersection of everything that we've been talking about today, and particularly to Jim's comments from the observations of the front line that I think what's certainly necessary is the push to pass the FIT bill. It has to happen. But then we'd be able to activate the private sector and then bring the sports leagues together. And I would add the Olympics to that, because the key epicenter or heart center of the Olympic movement right now, as it comes back to our country in 28 with LA 28, is youth, sports, and accessibility. And I think we just all need to think about, what does that action plan look like at the intersection of literally every single thing that we talked about today. And I think it's really important from Jim's comments that we have to get into the community and enable, as we pull out of, semi-post-COVID world and are able to open up, that there's real life opportunity for these kids, particularly in the compromised communities. So I would push for some type of, kind of summit, even if it's virtual to start, but it's the intersection of everything we've been talking about today, and it's exciting when you think about it.
Linda, it really is, and you inspire a thought, and I'm just going to throw it out to the council, but because, coming back to what Ashley said at the beginning, it would be wonderful in this era would be to roll all of the other, the Paralympics, the Special Olympics, to roll them all into that big event. If that could happen in some way, I think that would be wonderful. Just humbly submit it as a citizen. And Linda, thank you. You're an amazing voice for us in a major world there. And bless you for doing that. I'm going to go on to the next question for us, for everybody. Which stakeholders could benefit from seeing the data? We've been talking about this data. It's impressive. Our board did a great job on why making youth sports facilities and programs accessible is important. Council members, your thoughts? Kind of feels so maybe we started to cover that. I'm going to move on to the next question then, because we've got some. Go ahead.
This is Julie again. I think a lot of the folks we're talking about here convening, if you can really put the really clear data and the why right in front of them, they haven't seen it. I think also when you think about getting down to the local level, is this something that we could equip our school systems with, right? Particularly when they have open gymnasiums or they have open fields that may not be being used. And local officials, I think it'll be really important. I'm sure there's a lot we can do in Washington, but I think the more that we can share this information at the state level and the local level, maybe it's the Conference of Mayors getting on that agenda at their annual meeting. But I think that those would be really important groups to get this in front of.
Absolutely. Certainly the example of the council in all the sectors in which we intersect can make a big difference. And I agree with Christina, by the way, and I'm just going to remind you, if you're not reading, good, Brenda Becker, pipe in, please. Just everybody, you can jump in. So thank you, Brenda.
Yeah, so, when you're talking about data, when you talk about all organizations, data drives everything. And so I'm just thinking about all the large groups that when I started raising this with our foundation, it's like, well, give me some data. So this fact sheet you put together, one page was outstanding for that reason. But that's why I think we go to big corporate groups and other groups, as my colleague just said, to share this data because it ties in now to healthcare disparities that is so broadly being spoken about COVID. And, the Business Roundtable just is raising this as an issue as well. So I think now might be the time, because of COVID, to strike data. And I think it'll drive people thinking about what this is leading to in healthcare that we can avoid by getting people to participate in sports. and stay active.
It's a great point, Brenda. And, we can turn crisis into opportunity, which is the way that great nations work. And thank you, Brenda, you're right. The next question for all of us. How can the council communicate the importance of fun and youth-driven goals to youth sports stakeholders, parents, coaches, youth, and organizations whom council members encounter? The motivational aspect, the cultural aspect. How can we communicate those? It's not only about competition. I'm thinking again about what Kyle said. Anyone? I'm going to move on to the next question just because we've got some wonderful discussion coming, I know. How could the council, next question, how could the council, Chris Tisi. Chris, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, to answer that, to throw out an idea around that question, what we heard from that lovely young lady today,
yes,
to me, is so inspirational to adults, but also to her peers, right? Her people in our own age group. How disseminate that message out there, I think I just feel like if I could disseminate that message today to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people, and they were able to hear that exactly how it was just disseminated to us, I think that in itself, that type of activities, I think would be of great benefit.
Absolutely. Chris, what a great point, and thank you. And Christine, I don't know if it's, perhaps it's possible for the council to create a video we could disseminate on social media with Nia perhaps repeating her comments in a more visually favorable format, but wondering about that. Jim Worthington is typing. I'm sorry, Christine, you were saying.
Absolutely. We would love that.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. That's a great.
And I would just say I would be happy to, if it's helpful, to have some people go there and have that done, filmed and disseminated, or anything I can do to be helpful with anyone that's in my orbit from a resource standpoint.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim.
Hey, I just jumped in. I think if we could use, you talk about the science, which is always talked about these days, following the science. I think if we could get across to the people that are in charge of these youth programs, the coaches, the organizations, and make them understand that there's a bigger picture here, that, running these programs for the elite or the better athletes does nothing long-term for the health and wellness of our Americans, particularly as these kids become adults. And, COVID, I think, more than anything, has put that out there. I think 90% of the people that perished from COVID had weight-related issues. Comorbidities are 2.3% or 2.3 or more. I mean, all the statistics point to a healthier youth will lead to a healthier adult population, lowers the cost of medical costs in the future. I think we really need to educate and get the information out. I know in my industry, the health club industry was shut down at a time when it was probably needed the most. Keeping people healthy, building immunity. I think it's the same thing with youth sports. I mean, here these kids were put in their living rooms, in their bedrooms, looking at their phone at a time when they were probably being more susceptible to illness because they were inactive. So I think if we could communicate not only the importance of the fun and the goals, but also the health benefits, I think that as a country we need to be doing more of that and not responding to these crises after the fact and then locking people up because, hey, you're too unhealthy to withstand it, so now you have to go in isolation. It's exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. So
right,
that's important.
The biggest health problem in our country, and you don't need to be in a position to know that, is obesity. The number one, and it's behind a lot of other pathology. including COVID deaths. You're quite right, Jim, and thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question for us. How could the council support youth voices? And we just alluded to this. Thanks again, Chris, for that thought. As important contributions to the training and development of youth sports and coaches programs. Eager to hear further comments about that if anybody wants to jump in on this specifically. And if not, I'll move to the next question. Hey, Christina's typing. Chris again. Chris, join us.
My question is really a question. Do we know of, or how would we be able to gather an actual database? Is there a database or several databases that exist to be able to take whatever message we think is important to those coaches, to those people that are on the front lines to disseminate the message? Do we have that access or ability to use that in some way if we found it?
You mean like message testing, Chris? Like which messages work best?
Well, if we were saying how would we create that voice, whatever our message would be around these statistics, whatever our message would be, a combination of all the things we're discussing, do we have the ability to disseminate that through some form of a database, whether that be digital or what have you, to share the message so that we can get them participating?
Nan, I'll jump in here.
Yes, please. Thank you, Christine. I was just going to ask you. Yep.
You know, I think this comment, Chris, is an important one because it highlights why we've announced the National Youth Sports Strategy Champions Partnership Initiative. We know that we as President's Council don't have all the keys and we don't have all of the connections, but we want to really get to the organizational level to be able to talk to youth and to be in community and partnership with organizations that are having communications and conversations with youth every single day. And so I think that our growing National Youth Sports Strategy Champions team, which is now 42 and what we want to get to an even higher level and number of organizations, can be that exactly what you're talking about.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both, Chris and of course, always. Do we have, if no further comments on that specific, I'm going to move to our next question, which is what are some ways the council can support parents, coaches, and mentors in using sports, to educate youth about healthy lifestyle behavior? So I think, Christina, what you and Chris were talking about gets to that issue as well, but eager to hear any more specifics from any of our participants.
Hey, Christina,
Natalie.
Jake here.
Oh, Jake, please.
Sorry, I'm trying to work the computer, but is it okay if I just talk on the phone?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. You know, I one of the things I was gonna kind of comment even on the first question is the things that were kind of novel to me or stood out was just how, you know, you mentioned the kind of the things under fun and how obviously winning is important and, you know, everyone loves to win, but it needs to be complemented with kind of these other tangibles and intangibles that are learned from sports and are important. And I feel like if anything, we kind of need to readdress with parents and coaches because, you know, seeing a lot of kids nowadays, the pressure is so big on to perform and to win and get the offer starting in 7th, 8th grade now, you know, like if you're not getting talked to by schools by your freshman year of high school, then you're already seems like you're behind. And there's so much pressure now and like just to perform that I think there really does need to be a refocus on, hey, sports are awesome. And yeah, if you're really good at it, you can make a career out of it and that's fun. And go perform the best you can. But for these other kids, and 99.9% of them, you know, let's reshift the focus on having fun and being active and the health benefits of that. And the intangibles that you do learn, like responsibility and accountability and respect and work ethic from sports. And I think those things and preaching those to coaches and, hey, if you can get those things out of your kids, that's what's going to carry them on to a successful future, regardless if it's in sports or something else.
Jake, great point, and thank you. Yes,
this is Herschel. Can you hear me?
Yes, Herschel, please. Thank you.
One of the things, and I think you said the right thing there, and one of the things I think that we got to remember as well is, we're talking about the sports side of it, and I think keeping a kid active, but I think we also have to let the kids know how it's going to be good for their health as well. And then the parents know that, and the coaches should know that as well. Every kid is not going to be a professional player, and I love what Ashley said early on is that during these times here, even though they're tough times, but you can see the bright light in some things. And what I mean by that is kids got to be creative today. Right now in sports, kids can be very, very creative with the parents and with the coaches and the different things that they're doing, but also in doing those things, you making a kid healthier, so you can show what that does in his lifetime. And now, because of that, you've seen the statistics, which is going to be increase in their grades being better, going to be an increase in their energy being better. So it's just not just about being in the sports arena, but it's also about their life as well.
Yes, indeed, and you exemplify that in every way, along with brilliant success as a competitor. Herschel, thank you. And we have Natalie Gulbis, speaking of competitors. Please, come on in, Ms. Gulbis.
You guys are amazing, so I don't want to take up time with just how many incredible comments and how honored I am to be part of this. But to answer this one specifically, I think a couple ways that we can support parents and coaches is by showing them this. I mean, really, in every single one of these, this one is specific to coaches, and giving them these handouts, making it really simple. And if we could create a one-page pamphlet or a benefit, and I know since we have all the data now to back it up, and get that into pediatric offices, get it into doctors' offices, get it into all of these major corporations, and helping them incorporate programs in with the individuals that are already working at that company, and maybe encouraging them to encourage the people to take a little bit of time or take their lunch break or volunteering to coach. I think that the general intimidation of needing to be a professional athlete to be a coach, or needing to have so many years of education to being a coach. And really, it's just the willingness to give an hour of your time. And I know everybody works so much, and if heads of Walmart and Procter & Gamble, if these are, I mean, we deal with them on tour. If they start an initiative like this, if we can get one major corporate company to start an initiative with their employees that allows them 30 minutes or an hour if they're going to go use it to coach or to give back and show them these statistics and educating them, I think that we'll have a ripple effect of so many other companies that will do the same.
Great point, Natalie. And in fact, as you know, Brenda Becker was talking about how she's taking the information that we've gathered to her company, and I think this represents a great opportunity for a combination of corporate and personal philanthropy and nonprofits getting involved. Kyle Snyder.
Well, now it's we had all the physical benefits, but now we have all the mental, emotional benefits of what everything does with engaging youth sports and their performance in school. There's really, it's arguable that there are many things that you can do then in an hour that provide so many benefits to youth and to the overall quality of family.
No question about it. And thank you, Natalie and Brenda, so much. And we're going to bring Kyle Snyder in for a comment.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking about this question, and, I think that for the most part, coaches are pretty thick-minded, and they have a certain way of thinking about things, and that's the way they're going to do it. But I think that people will do what they think is best for their team and themselves. So if you were to educate coaches, like I'm thinking about the way that I would talk to a coach about being more inclusive and giving people more playing time and keeping more athletes on their team and stuff like that. I would say, well, if we don't have kids playing sports, the next time a COVID-19 happens, we're all going to be, I mean, like it was said earlier, a healthier youth is going to be a healthier adult population. If you want your youth to be healthier, you need them to play. It's good for them to play sports. So if they knew that having a healthier youth, having more people on their team might, the next time a COVID-19 or something happens, maybe we don't have to quarantine because we have a healthier population and things like that, where they can think about the bigger picture instead of just focusing on, winning the elementary school football game. It could be they could think about, well, if I keep a couple more people on my team, I don't like staying in my house over quarantine, and I don't like doing this. So if that could help that out, then I might do it. So.
Cal, thank you. Yeah, we're talking about in many ways cultural redefinitions here, or new expanded definitions of what it means to be an athlete and to be part of sports for everyone. Dr. Oz, please join in, and thank you, Kyle. Oh, hold on 1 second. I'm getting a message from Christina. Dr. Oz,
are you on mute?
We'll keep the line open for you, Dr. Oz. I'm gonna just ask the council my final question, because we've only got about 16 minutes, folks, and I know Christina's got a couple of very important things we want to talk about in a more specific way. But final question: what are the community values you'd like to see fostered through youth sports? And how can these values be reflected in the way programs are designed or implemented? And I know we've talked about some of this. Trevor Drinkwater, join us.
Hi, how you doing? So I was going to address the last, see if you can see me there. I was going to address the last question, a couple of things that came up I thought were interesting to at least talk about. There was a stat that came in earlier about the $117 billion worth of annual health care savings if everybody was actually doing the daily activities. And I think the stat was only 25% of the people actually doing that. Those are the types of stats that I think could be and should be shared with companies like Natalie brought up, whether that's Walmart or Coke or Procter & Gamble, who have hundreds of thousands of employees, and the impact that they can have by showing their employees the work that they can do just to get healthier, I think is an area that we can really focus on. So like building out those stats, I mean, obviously going from 25% to 100% is huge. That may not be achievable, but having some impact there, I think, is also something we should focus on. The other area that I think hasn't been brought up too specifically here, but is an area that we really need to focus on is the ability of sports and being in shape to really improve personal well-being in terms of mental wellness and being inspired to live healthier lives, right? And given what's going on with COVID right now, you're seeing a huge impact in high school kids who expected to have their senior year, kind of glory days just disappear on them. So being able to address those issues that I think are going to manifest over the next few years, if not addressed, is something that we really should be focused on and looking how we can, and we can kind of see downfield a little bit the impact that COVID will have on that. And to the specific question you had before as well, as in terms of just, what parents and coaches could do, the biggest thing I see also is just in a lot of us that are getting older and not in as good a shape, know that we're modeling behavior, whether that's good or bad. So giving them tools to feel comfortable to coach, even if you're not in the best shape, or comfortable in supporting youth in their endeavors to stay active, even if you're not the best model to that, I think are some areas that we should be thinking about how we can make it more accessible, approachable, and easier for parents and coaches to get involved and not shy away from it.
Trevor, thank you, because you're absolutely right. It can be intimidating. I know firsthand. So thank you, Trevor, for those many thoughts. Dr. Oz, please join in.
I apologize. Should I take on the phone or the computer? I can't even tell anymore. I keep going back and forth. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yeah.
All right, good. So, one of the issues that I think we got to focus on is giving people news they can use at home. I haven't heard a parent yet speak glowingly about the educational process that they're receiving. I can imagine that most schools, at least this part of the country, will stay closed through the winter. I think the task force, the council should seriously consider creating PSAs. I've been asked to do those for mask wearing by the federal government. We could easily create similar, 1 minute little snippets. They could live on social, or I put them in my show, but I bet they'd be well received by most media organizations. And we have folks on the task force, but more importantly, we could assign or look for stars to the kids right now and ask them to make these small little blips. Most of them it's inspirational, but one little spotty activity. They could break up the monotony of having a 4-year-old sit in front of a TV screen for 6 hours.
You're so right, Dr. Oz, and I love that idea. And Christina, I bet you can give us thoughts about how we can make that happen, if not directly right now, certainly in a follow-up. Christina, thank you, Council, for your amazing thoughts and for this opportunity to join you for this. Christina, our fearless leader and our beautiful leader, take us home with COVID-19.
Wonderful. I think, Dr. Oz, like Dan said, I think that's a great point, and I think it's something that, thinking about the data that we've received from the Science Board, thinking about all these messages that we want to convey, whether it's youth that are telling these messages or whether it's more educational, I think getting it in 1 minute snippets as PSAs is a great idea, and it's something that we can very easily do in the coming months while people are still at home. So I completely agree with Nan that all the responses have been fantastic so far. I've still got a few more questions for us, and I know we've got about 15 more minutes. So let's dive in. To wrap up the Science Board discussion. With the Science Board report completed, the Science Board is now ready to move on to other activities to continue to support the work of the Council. So what other areas of youth sports research could the Science Board focus on to help you further the National Youth Sports Strategy? Any thoughts or comments on that? And just feel free to jump in. Okay. Chris, I know you had a couple thoughts that might have touched on the last one. Did you want to say a few words? Again, comment from an action standpoint. I feel like there's a lot of it could be potential interest in creating almost our own best practices for youth participation to both parents of children that are going to be in youth sports and or coaches. Not so much, there was comments around each coach is different. Each coach has a different strategy around actually how you play that sport, but more from a social consciousness standpoint of how do you keep youth engaged? What are some of those best practices around keeping them engaged based on those statistics that we know of, based on the idea that 70% drop out, based on some of those other stats? What are the best practices to keep engagement around diversity, around keeping them engaged, those types of ideas? Could we create that best practice and disseminate that? I think that's a great point. And maybe if I can translate that, we have now a one-pager from the Science Board that gives us a very tangible item that we can hand out to coaches and parents and mentors and at speaking engagements to communities that explains and promotes the benefits of youth sports, which we want to expand that awareness across our country, not just that it's physical, but also it's mental health, et cetera, all the things we've talked about. I think maybe, Chris, based on that comment, something that could be an additional tool is to take from the Science Board some of the recommendations and the scientific evidence that they have around what actually motivates kids to play sports, or what are things that parents or coaches can do to engage youth in their sports. So I would put to the group that maybe these one-pagers are really good both for social media, but also for physically handing these out to continue to promote the messages and to distill the very good scientific evidence that we have in this report. Would that be a fair assumption? Or
and just to add to that, we are in a society now where people are expecting to understand what best practices are for all kinds of things, right? most people want to be told what should I and shouldn't I be doing for all kinds of things. And so it's a timely issue that I think would be helpful to put on our site to disseminate in different ways to say this is the best practices for keeping the youth in sports and all of the benefits. I think it's a timely thing that maybe we can start designing a little bit of an outline of it and have it passed around to try to figure out what that would look like. And then maybe it's one of the other PSAs. Maybe it's some. My whole thing is how do you disseminate these things and actually execute on some of these awesome ideas?
Absolutely. I love that. And I think we now have two very strong bases. We have a National Youth Sports Strategy, which is, 1 year in the making and has a fantastic vision and has fantastic strategy for community level, organization level, policy level recommendations. We now have the science to support each of those things. And so if we can take these two strategies, these two documents, and distill them into information, sound bites, PSAs, one-pagers, that we can really promote the work and the vision of these things, I think that's going to be a great next step for the Science Board to help the council in their work. Now, is there anyone else who's got any comments on Rob Wilkins? I see you. Do you have any comments on this? And feel free to join me on video too, Rob.
I'm sorry. One of the areas we might consider looking into the mental aspect of sports. I've talked to a lot of kids, with my son being a travel athlete, that it's the fear of failure. They don't want to take the shot with the game on the line. They're worried about striking out with 2 outs and the bases loaded. So I think if we can maybe come up with some techniques to teach youth that, you lost the game, but you didn't lose life. Just because you lost this one battle, the big war might be won later on down the line. You learn a lot of lessons by losing and by failing. So I think sometimes if we can give these children some encouragement and hope because they lost, it might be an important thing that we can do to help them further their sports career, but their life in general.
I love that. I think that's so important, and it's so important right now when there's so much fear and anxiety across our country, and I think promoting those messages and giving, you just saw with Keisha and Nia and their interactions and exchanges with each other, you can tell that there has been commitment in pouring into, the youth and making sure that they feel like they can do it. And I think that helps with mental wellness and just for their confidence. I think these are great ideas. I'm mindful that we've only got 10 more minutes on this section, so I do want to go over to some of the COVID-19 questions. We've got 3 of them. I think we'll have enough time for 2. The first one was really, what are the biggest challenges you've seen in your communities? I think we've touched on a lot of this, and feel free as I move to the next question to kind of weave these 2 things together. What have the challenges been, but also just to focus on a couple creative things, what are creative ways you've seen organizations or communities or families continue to promote youth sports? We've heard some examples from Keisha, but what have people seen in terms of communities and families really responding in a way that has been creative and impressive in spite of just enormous difficulty? Anyone?
Well, this is Herschel, and if I can say this, one of the greatest things I've seen during this time is seeing family together, exercising together. To see a dad and mom with the kids, even if they're cycling, if they're out walking, if they're out doing anything during these times, whereas before COVID, I hardly ever saw that. In my neighborhood, I never even knew kids had a bike. Well, during these times, I've seen more kids on bikes. I've had an opportunity to see so many families together, which, and is tough to have it during these tough times, but it's great to see families together exercising.
I completely agree with you. And I alluded to it in my speech earlier this morning, but, I loved the video with Johnny Damon with his 6 kids doing push-ups and running around and making sure that, parents are bringing kids from the inside, from in front of the screen, and really engaging with them in fun and unique ways where it doesn't feel like exercise, but they're still getting the benefits of that exercise by having fun in a new and creative way. So thank you for that, Herschel. Are there any others who want to speak a little bit more to the challenges that specific communities have had in the midst of COVID-19 and youth sports, or some of the creative ways that they've seen people overcome these immense challenges?
Christina, this is Jim.
Hey, Jim.
One of the things we've seen since, again, I mentioned earlier, the school systems have not been able to accommodate the people. We've encouraged in our community, and actually in the health club industry, is to have the clubs participate by giving their facilities free during certain times, so that people could come in, whether it be the kids with their mom and dads, and just come in and utilize their facilities. I have an outdoor pool facilities here. We've on, I think it's September 26th, a Saturday, we're going to do a community day where we're inviting everybody from the community, based on the numbers, because you have to social distance. But we can hold about 1,200 people there outside socially, and let it be for the community. So those are the kind of things we're encouraging in our community, and we're encouraging other people that have these types of facilities to open it up during the day when they're slower, to let seniors walk, or because they're afraid to go into a health club setting or get somewhere, walk the mall because they're afraid there's too many people around, but they'll come to a facility like our sports training center and get exercise and do classes with other people. So getting the private sector always involved is a big boost to a community, so that the facilities are there and be able to be shared, because of the fact the schools just aren't able to be used.
I think that's really amazing, Jim. I think that's an amazing example that your organization has set, and I know that you've been in communication with so many different companies and gyms and people across your community. You guys have poured into your community. I love the idea that you guys did of dressing up as princesses and superheroes, just to put a smile on kids' faces in your communities and to get families outside and just doing something fun together. So thank you for that. I think I'm going to move on to this last question, everyone, and this is just kind of the last opportunity to be able to say something if you were wanting to say something before in response to another question. But what do you hope that youth sports looks like when COVID-19 is over and it's safe to resume all activities? Anyone? And I think we're back, hoping that our
audience... It's Jake here, Christina.
Jake.
Yeah, I just think I hope there's just, again, a greater appreciation for everyone who is involved in putting on types of leagues and coaches and stuff. I know I was kind of going to answer maybe the last question too. You know, I work with a high school ministry out here, and during this time we've kind of adapted some games, like we do like human foosball with soccer, so like everyone has their own space, and it's kind of like, you know, foosball, but just with humans, kickball, where, you know, you're kind of pegging the ball at someone so you're not even really getting close and then tag it, and it's kind of obviously, you know, you're kicking it around. So there's different like adaptations you can make with sports, but you know, these kids are so they're so dying to get back out there and participate with their friends and play sports. So I really just hope there's appreciation for people that are going to now kind of play in that role of getting the kids back out there, and then hopefully we can just really use enthusiasm. That's going to, I really believe once COVID's over, there's going to be a huge enthusiasm by kids who want to go out there and participate. And so we do need to kind of figure out, hey, there's going to be a wave that comes, so let's not lose that wave, you know, 2 months into now practicing. Okay, now these kids are back. Now they're going to maybe get drained, or they're going to, you know, flame out. No, let's make sure we're ready to, when this wave does come back, that we're ready to capture and not let it go.
I love that. It's such an important perspective to have, and it does feel like there is a readying right now of really helping to rebuild youth sports. But when it does come back, what messages are we hearing? Are we pressing a reset button on the ways that we want culture, U.S. sports culture and youth sports culture in particular, to move towards a vision that it is more, we're playing for fun, we're playing because it's healthy, we're playing because there are all these benefits. It's not only about competition. It's not only about the top 1% who are going to become pro sports players. So I think that's a really, really poignant remark, Kyle. Thank you for that. Anyone else have last-minute thoughts in the final 2 minutes of this section? I really appreciate everyone participating so far. I'm looking for hands raised. Natalie, did you have one last thing to say?
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback what Julie said when she said, and she's talking about youth sports being really popular. I would love to see at the end of COVID that the same way in the last 2 years we've seen mindfulness and yoga and these trends, for it to be trending, for us to be able to educate companies, doctors, schools, teachers, and communities of the benefits, so that it's not only they see the benefits of it the way they have some of these other things I mentioned, but that it's something that is really popular and that they feel it more of it as a necessity, not just as a fast track to become part of a career or to play in college, but really as a part of life.
Yes, I love that. Thank you.
Can I back on exactly what Natalie just said? I think we have to start looking at promoting non-traditional sports. Not everybody wants or can be a football star or a baseball player. I mean, there's a lot of skill involved when you get to the upper levels. So things like what Natalie mentioned, yoga or dance, or not that they're not skillful, they are, but you're not really competing against anybody per se when you're doing a yoga class or things like that. And I think if it's the message is to try to get kids more healthy and active, I think we need to start promoting the more non-traditional sports more.
And Christina,
I love it. Yes,
I like to say that Ashley made a very, very good point as well, that and when we get back to some type of normalcy, I hope people remember the mental size of it, that, there are some people that can't do the type of sports others can do, that we remember them as well.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you guys more. Actually, Herschel, I'm going to get... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Who did I know?
No, I was just going to say, this is Chris, I was going to say I'm confident and, of course, hopeful that people will have reminded through this COVID experience how important sports is, how important youth sports is, and the participation within a community, within a family. And I'm confident that it will be bigger than ever. And I know it's hard for some people every day to believe that and see that, but I believe that as a country, we're going to come together. We'll be the best state of our country has ever been in. And I believe that youth sports will be bigger and more important and more respected, and the coaches who participate and everything than ever before.
Thank you. I love that. I love, all of the comments that you all have made so far and the suggestions that you've put forward and the reflections on the Science Board and the amazing work that they've done to give you all tools to further implement the youth sports strategy is it's so encouraging to me. It's one of the reasons I love this council so much. I'm always so energized by hearing your ideas, your enthusiasm, and just your desire to just go. We don't want to talk about these. We want to actually put these things into action. And so thank you all so very much for those comments. I will be following up with you in the coming weeks so we can actually start putting some of these things into action. With just a few minutes left, I do want to hand it back to Herschel just to give us some closing remarks, some closing thoughts, and then I'll finish us up for sure. All right. Herschel, are you still on?
Yes, I'm on. On behalf of the President Council, we'd like to thank everyone for this great discussion. And I know it's challenging to stay active during these tough times, but hey, wow, how was Keisha and Nina? Let me tell you, from the Atlanta Boys and Girls Club, they were inspiring and had a lot of creative ideas that they shared with us, and we got to thank them so much for participating. And also to Dr. Bradley and Dr. Nan and all your Science Board members for all the tremendous amount of work that you've did in such a short time, putting together reports all on the youth sports and the fact sheets and all the benefits of youth sports, and and all my council family for all your input you had. thank all of you, and I know the entire council. We're looking forward to continue working with the Science Board and relying on your tremendous expertise. Thank you for all you're doing, and what a year this has been. And as I've always said, you got to look up to go up. And it's been an honor for me to serve with my fellow council members, and I want us to continue to help motivate our youth to play sports regardless of their race, sex, ability, or zip code. And speaking on behalf on the family, the council family, I want to say how grateful it was for us to continue promoting health and active lifestyle for all Americans. And Christina, to your group, thank you for all you're doing and putting together this council, President Council annual meeting. Thank you, and you guys be safe.
Thank you so much, Herschel. You know, I echo everything that Herschel said. We are so thankful. I know we're in our last minute, but we are so thankful to all the speakers, to Keisha, to Nia, to Dr. Brad and Nan, and for all of our council members, to Clay and to Admiral Giroir, to Scott, to the Secretary, to Katrina. We're just so thankful that you are willing to spend this time with us to give us a really unique perspective from a lot of different points of view on where we're at with youth sports, but also what potential we have in the youth sports community as President's Council members to really promote these messages that are truly life-changing on an individual level and also on a national level. We also really want to thank our amazing 42 initial National Youth Sports Strategy champions. We are so excited to partner with you guys. This is the beginning of a long-term partnership of really making sure that the youth sports strategy is not just a strategy on paper, but it is something that is realized and, like I said, affects communities and individuals across our country. If you want to learn more about the Youth Sports Strategy Champions, please go to our website on health.gov. We would love for you to apply if you're an organization in the private sector or the public sector, any organization that works with youth sports. We want to partner with you to realize this vision. And I just want to thank our amazing members of ODPHP and the folks at KAI for making this meeting run the way that it has. It's not easy to do a virtual meeting with so many people and logistics, but you guys did such a fantastic job, and I'm forever indebted to you all and forever grateful. Folks, this concludes our 2020 annual meeting of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. We are so excited for the weeks to come and the years to come so we can further this vision. Jen, would you mind closing us out officially?
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our annual meeting. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.